3 seconds. That's all it took for her life to become a living hell. How many 3-second glances have you given that someone twisted into a reason to destroy you? Chapter 1. The Mask of Kindness. The silver hairbrush connected with the back of Vera's skull with a sickening crack that echoed through the private chambers. She stumbled forward, catching herself on the edge of the vanity, but she didn't cry out. She never did. That would only make it worse. You clumsy, worthless thing. Lady Vivienne's voice dripped with false concern as she set the brush down with deliberate care. Look what you've made me do. My hand is positively throbbing now. Vera kept her eyes lowered, watching a drop of blood fall from her hairline onto the polished wood. Her vision swam, but she remained silent, counting her breaths the way she'd learned to do over the years. 1, 2, 3, 4. By the time she reached 10, the worst of the dizziness would pass. Well? Vivienne demanded, her silk dressing gown rustling as she moved closer. Aren't you going to apologize for being so careless? For making me strike you? Forgive me, my lady, Vera whispered, the words mechanical after 4 years, 9 months, and 12 days of practice. It won't happen again. See that it doesn't. Vivienne's manicured fingers suddenly gripped Vera's chin, forcing her head up. The Luna's face was a perfect mask of beauty. High cheekbones, flawless skin, eyes like emeralds. She smiled, and it was the smile she wore at pack gatherings, full of warmth and grace. Clean yourself up, you're bleeding on my carpet, and fix your hair before you serve breakfast. The Alpha has guests this morning, and I won't have you looking like something the rogues dragged in. Yes, my lady. Vivienne's grip tightened for just a moment, her nails digging into Vera's jaw. Then she released her and glided toward the door, transforming before Vera's eyes into the picture of regal composure. Oh, and Vera? She paused at the threshold, glancing back with that same false sweetness. Do hurry. You know how Alpha Kieran values punctuality. The door closed with a soft click, and Vera finally allowed herself to breathe. Her hands shook as she pressed a cloth to the wound on her scalp, watching her reflection in the vanity mirror. 24 years old, and she looked like a ghost, pale skin, hollow cheeks, gray eyes that had long ago stopped hoping for anything better. The only color came from the fresh bruises blooming along her collarbone, barely visible above the high collar of her servant's dress. This was her life. This had been her life for nearly 5 years. The world saw Luna Vivienne as the perfect mate to Alpha Kieran of the Silverpine Pack, gracious, charitable, beloved by all. She organized festivals, visited the sick, donated generously to orphans. The pack members whispered that Kieran was blessed to have such a mate, that she was the jewel of the territory. But alone, behind closed doors, Vivienne was something else entirely. A monster who took pleasure in calculated cruelty, who found creative ways to hurt that left minimal visible marks, and Vera was her favorite target, all because of 3 seconds. Vera closed her eyes, remembering the moment that had sealed her fate. 4 years and 9 months ago, she'd been working in the kitchens as she had since Mabel took her in. Safe, invisible, just another servant girl grateful for a roof over her head. Then Alpha Kieran had walked through on an inspection, and for 3 seconds, just 3, his golden eyes had landed on her face. He'd been looking at everyone, giving each servant the same brief acknowledgement. Nothing more, nothing less. But Vivienne had been standing beside him, and she'd seen her mate's eyes touch Vera's face, and in that instant, Vera's world had shattered. Within a week, Vivienne had requested Vera as her personal attendant. The pack had celebrated it as an honor. Mabel had hugged her, tears in her kind eyes, thinking this was a blessing. No one knew. No one suspected. How could they? Vivienne was too clever for that. The abuse had started small, accidental scaldings with hot tea, clumsy door slams on Vera's fingers, fabric that was defective and caused rashes, always with apologies, always with concern, always with plausible deniability. By the time it escalated to actual beatings, Vera had learned the most important rule. Silence was survival. She cleaned the blood from her hair and changed into a fresh dress, hiding the bruises beneath layers of fabric despite the summer heat. The lightning bolt scars that ran across her shoulders and down her back, remnants of the night her parents died, were always covered. Those marks were her secret shame, the visible proof of the night her wolf had tried to emerge and failed. The night she'd become broken. 10 years ago. She'd been 14. Vera shook her head, pushing away the memories of her parents' screams, the rogue's laughter, the searing agony as her body tried and failed to shift. Her wolf had seized halfway through the transformation, trapped between human and beast, and something inside her had shattered. The healers said her wolf was blocked, locked away behind some kind of trauma barrier. In the shifter world, that made her less than human. A broken thing, so she'd learned to hide. Mabel, the head cook who'd found her wandering in shock, had taken her in and taught her the most important skill: invisibility. For 6 years, Vera had perfected the art of being overlooked, of blending into the background, of existing without being seen, until 3 seconds had ruined everything. "Vera!" Mabel's urgent whisper came from the servants' stairway. The older woman's round face was creased with worry as she hurried into the room. "Dear heart, your face. It's nothing," Vera said quickly, forcing a smile. "I'm fine, Mabel. Really." That woman, Mabel bit off the words, her weathered hands trembling as she cupped Vera's face. She'd been Vivian's servant once, years ago, before Vera's time. She knew. She'd always known. But what could she do? Report the Luna? Who would believe a servant over the Alpha's mate? "Don't," Vera whispered, covering Mabel's hands with her own. "Please, it's safer if you don't know." "I already know, child. I've known for years." Mabel's eyes glistened with tears. "I just don't know how to stop it." Neither did Vera. So she simply squeezed the older woman's hands and picked up the breakfast tray, heading toward the great dining hall where Alpha Kieran would be entertaining his guests. The Silver Pine Packhouse was a sprawling stone manor built into the mountainside, all soaring ceilings and ancient timber. Vera moved through the servants' corridors like a shadow, her footsteps silent on the worn flagstones. She could hear voices from the dining hall, the deep rumble of male laughter, the clink of silverware on fine china. She paused at the service entrance, arranging her face into the blank, pleasant expression she'd perfected. Then she pushed through the door into the brightness of the morning hall. Alpha Kieran sat at the head of the long table, his dark hair catching the sunlight that streamed through the tall windows. He was a large man, powerfully built, with the kind of presence that commanded attention even when he was sitting still. His second in command, Beta Thorn, sat to his right, along with several visiting alphas from neighboring territories, and beside Kieran, looking radiant in a pale blue gown, sat Luna Vivienne. Vera kept her eyes down as she entered, moving with practiced efficiency to refill water glasses and replace empty platters. She was furniture, she was air, she was nothing. "More coffee, my dear," Vivienne said sweetly, holding out her cup. As Vera took it, Vivienne's other hand shot out beneath the table, pinching the soft skin of Vera's inner arm with vicious precision. Vera's hand jerked, and hot coffee splashed over the rim, barely missing Vivienne's gown. "Oh!" Vivienne gasped, pulling back. "Careful, Vera. You nearly burned me." "Forgive me, my lady," Vera whispered, mortification heating her cheeks. Every eye in the room had turned toward them. "No harm done," Vivienne said magnanimously, waving a dismissive hand. "Poor thing. You look positively exhausted. Perhaps you should rest after breakfast service. I work you too hard, I think." Murmurs of approval rippled around the table at the Luna's kindness. Vera bobbed a curtsy and retreated to the sideboard, her arm throbbing where Vivienne's nails had broken skin. She didn't notice Alpha Kieran's eyes following her, didn't see the slight furrow between his brows as he watched her careful, limping gait. She was too focused on staying upright, on finishing her duties, on surviving another day. But Kieran noticed. He'd been noticing for weeks now, small inconsistencies piling up in his mind. His personal attendant flinched when anyone moved too quickly near her. She never met anyone's eyes. And despite Vivienne's constant praise of her dedication, the girl looked progressively worse, thinner, paler, moving like every step caused pain. Something wasn't right. "Kieran?" Vivienne's voice was warm honey as she touched his arm. "Darling, are you all right? You seem distracted." He turned to his mate, taking in her perfect smile, her attentive gaze. 5 years of marriage, and sometimes he felt like he was living with a beautiful stranger. There was something in her eyes that never quite matched her expressions, something cold beneath the warmth, but he'd attributed it to their lack of a mate bond rare but not unheard of. Some political marriages simply weren't blessed by fate. "Fine," he said, returning his attention to his guests. "Just thinking about the Border Patrol reports." The conversation moved on, but Kieran's awareness kept returning to the gray-eyed servant girl moving silently through the room. There was something about her, something that tugged at his consciousness in a way he couldn't explain. He would have dismissed it, would have forgotten about it entirely, if not for what happened 3 hours later. Vera was carrying a basket of linens down the back staircase when her foot caught on a loose stone. She pitched forward, throwing out her hands to catch herself, and the basket went tumbling. White sheets billowed through the air like ghosts as she landed hard on the stone floor, crying out despite herself as pain exploded through her shoulder. "Damn it," she whispered, pushing herself up on trembling arms. Blood seeped through her sleeve where she'd scraped against the rough wall. She needed to get up, needed to gather the linens, needed to— "Don't move." The voice froze her in place, deep, commanding, "Alpha." Vera's heart stopped as footsteps descended the stairs behind her. She tried to rise, tried to curtsy, but a gentle hand pressed against her uninjured shoulder, holding her still. "I said don't move. You might have broken something." Alpha Kieran crouched beside her, his gold eyes scanning her for injuries. "Let me see your arm." "It's nothing, Alpha. I'm fine. I just need to." That wasn't a request. His voice held the unmistakable weight of command, and her body obeyed before her mind could protest. She held out her arm, and his large hands carefully rolled up her sleeve, revealing the long scrape oozing blood, and the finger-shaped bruises that circled her wrist. The burn mark from yesterday's accident with the tea kettle, the half-healed cuts from last week's mishap with the sewing scissors. Kieran went absolutely still. Vera watched his face, watched as his expression shifted from concern to confusion to something that made her breath catch in her throat. His pupils dilated, and the air around him seemed to thicken with barely contained power. His wolf was rising, responding to something he didn't yet understand. Who did this? The question came out in a low growl that reverberated through the stairwell. "I'm clumsy, Alpha. I fall often, and— don't." His eyes locked onto hers, and she couldn't look away. Couldn't breathe. "Don't lie to me. These are not accidents." His thumb traced the edge of a burn mark with devastating gentleness. "Who did this?" Vera opened her mouth, terror and something dangerously close to hope warring in her chest. For 5 years, she'd survived by staying silent, but the way he was looking at her, the rage and protectiveness burning in his golden eyes. Maybe this time someone would listen. "Alpha Kieran." Vivian's voice rang out from the top of the stairs, saccharine and concerned. "Oh my goodness, Vera. Did you fall again? You really must be more careful, dear. Here, let me help." "Stay where you are." Kieran's voice cracked like a whip, and Vivian froze mid-step. He rose slowly, positioning himself between Vera and his mate, and something in his stance made Vera's broken wolf whimper in the depths of her consciousness. Protection. He was protecting her. "Kieran?" Vivian's perfect mask flickered for just an instant, revealing something cold and calculating beneath. "What's wrong?" "I need to speak with you," he said, each word carefully controlled. "In my study, now." "Of course, darling. But shouldn't we help poor Vera first? She's bleeding." "Thorn!" Kieran's call echoed through the manor, and within seconds, the beta appeared, his expression alert. "Take Vera to the healer. Stay with her. No one, and I mean no one, is to speak with her until I give permission. Understand?" Thorn's sharp eyes took in the scene, his Alpha's protective stance, the Luna's fixed smile, the servant girl's terrified face. "Understood, Alpha." "Kieran, really?" Vivian laughed. But there was an edge to it now. "All this fuss over a clumsy servant? You're embarrassing the poor girl." Kieran turned to face his mate fully, and even from her position on the floor, Vera could see the fury leashed beneath his skin. "My study. Now. Or I will have this conversation right here, and I promise you, Vivian, you don't want that." For one heartbeat, two, the Luna's mask slipped completely. The look she shot at Vera was pure venom. A promise of retribution. Then she smoothed her features back into gentle confusion and nodded. Of course, my love, whatever you wish. As they walked away, Vera finally released the breath she'd been holding. Thorn helped her to her feet with surprising gentleness for such a large man, his expression carefully neutral. Come on, he said quietly. Let's get you checked out. As they walked toward the healer's quarters, Vera's mind raced. What had she done? Kieran had seen the marks, had recognized them for what they were. Would he believe her? Or would Vivienne's explanations and charm win out, as they always did? And if he did believe her, if by some miracle he actually believed her, what would Vivienne do? Vera's hand went to her throat, where bruises from yesterday's necklace accident still throbbed beneath her collar. She'd survived 5 years of torture by being silent, by enduring, by hoping for nothing. But hope was the most dangerous thing of all, because hope made you believe things could change. And in Vera's experience, they never did. Chapter 2. The Broken System. The healer's quarters smelled of herbs and clean linen, a stark contrast to the fierce sweat that clung to Vera's skin. Beta Thorn stood by the door like a sentinel, while old healer Margot examined her injuries with practiced efficiency and increasingly dark expressions. How long? Margot asked quietly, her weathered fingers gentle as they catalogued each mark. She was one of the few wolves in the pack old enough to remember Vera's parents, old enough to have treated the girl after the rogue attack that left her broken. Does it matter? Vera whispered back, watching Thorn's broad back. He was staring out the window, giving them privacy, but his enhanced hearing would catch every word. It matters to me, child. Margot's voice cracked slightly. These burns are weeks old. These bruises are in various stages of healing. This wasn't one incident. This is systematic. Vera said nothing. What could she say? That Luna Vivienne had been torturing her for 4 years. 9 months. And 12 days. That the beloved, charitable mate of their alpha was a monster behind closed doors? Who would believe it? I need to document everything, Margot said firmly, reaching for parchment and ink. Every injury, every mark. The alpha will want a full accounting. No. Vera grabbed the healer's wrist, panic flaring. Please, Margot. If she finds out I told. She already knows the alpha suspects something. The damage is done, Vera. Margot's gray eyes were sad but resolute. You might as well tell the truth now. It's your only chance. Her only chance. The words echoed in Vera's mind as Margot worked, as the sun tracked across the sky outside, as the list of injuries grew longer and longer. Chance for what? Justice? Freedom? In what world did servants get either of those things? Remove your dress, Margot instructed gently. I need to see your back. Vera's hands froze on the buttons. No, that's not necessary. The injuries are all... Girl, I was there the night your parents died. I know about the scars. I need to see if there are fresh injuries beneath them. Margot's voice softened. I'm not going to hurt you. I swear it. With trembling fingers, Vera unbuttoned her dress and let it fall to her waist. She heard Thorn's sharp intake of breath from across the room, heard his muttered curse. The lightning bolt scars that spider-webbed across her shoulders and down her spine were impossible to miss, jagged white lines that marked where her incomplete transformation had torn her apart from the inside. But beneath those old scars were new ones. Lash marks from Vivienne's riding crop, burns from heated pokers, the imprint of a belt buckle. Years of careful, calculated torture mapped across her skin like a horrific tapestry. Goddess above, Margot breathed. Beta Thorn, you need to see this. I can hear you cataloging it, Thorn said tightly, still facing the window. That's enough. No, you need to see it. This goes beyond discipline or accidents. This is torture. If the Alpha doubts her story, this evidence cannot be denied. Slowly, Thorn turned. His hazel eyes swept over Vera's scarred back, and his expression transformed into something cold and deadly. He was a warrior, had been in countless battles, but the look on his face suggested this was somehow worse than any battlefield carnage. How? He asked hoarsely. How did we not know? Because I was careful, Vera said bitterly, pulling her dress back up. Because she was careful, because no one looks at servants closely enough to notice. But someone should have the other servants, the pack members, see what they expect to see? Vera laughed without humor. Everyone sees Luna Vivienne as perfect, kind, charitable, and they see me as clumsy, accident-prone, lucky to serve such a gracious mistress. That's what she wanted them to see, so that's what they saw. Thorne's jaw clenched. The Alpha will want to speak with you. I know. He'll want to know everything. Who did this? How long it's been happening? Why you didn't report it? I know. And you need to tell him the truth. Thorne moved closer, his voice dropping low. All of it. Do you understand? The Luna is the Alpha's mate. Accusing her as this could tear the pack apart. You need to be absolutely certain of what you're saying. Vera met his eyes steadily. Do you think I'm lying? I think your back tells a story that can't be denied. But I also think you're terrified, and terrified people sometimes see threats where none exist. Then why did the Alpha order you to guard me? Why did he look at her like... Vera stopped, remembering the cold fury in Kieran's eyes. He suspects. He already knows something isn't right. Before Thorne could respond, a sharp knock sounded at the door. Beta Thorne? The Alpha requests the servant girl's presence in his study. Immediately, Thorne exchanged a glance with Margot, who quickly handed him the documentation she'd compiled. Everything is recorded here. Dates, injuries, stages of healing. I'll testify to my findings if needed. It'll be needed, Thorne said grimly. He turned to Vera. Can you walk? She nodded, though her legs felt like water. This was it. The moment that would determine whether she survived this day or whether Vivienne found a way to finish her permanently. The walk to Kieran's study felt like a march to execution. Vera had only been inside the Alpha's private office once before, years ago, when she'd first been assigned to Vivienne. Then, Kieran had barely looked at her, just another servant, beneath his notice. Now, as Thorne opened the heavy oak door, she found him standing by the window, his posture rigid with barely contained violence. Alpha, Thorne said formally. The girl, as requested. Kieran turned, and Vera's breath caught. His eyes had shifted from their usual gold to something more amber, more wolf. His beast was close to the surface, prowling just beneath his skin. Leave us, Kieran ordered. Alpha, with respect. This is a serious accusation against the Luna. You should have a witness. I said leave us. The command rolled through the room with such force that Thorne's wolf automatically submitted, his head bowing. Wait outside. No one enters without my permission. When the door closed behind Thorne, the silence was suffocating. Kieran studied Vera for a long moment, and she forced herself to meet his gaze, despite every instinct, screaming at her to look away, to submit, to make herself small. Sit, he said finally, gesturing to a chair by the fireplace. When she hesitated, he added more gently, Please. You look like you're about to collapse. She sat, perching on the edge of the leather chair like a bird ready to take flight. Kieran remained standing, creating distance between them, and she realized he was trying to make her feel less threatened. The observation made her throat tight. The healer's report is extensive, he said, holding up the parchment Thorne had given him. Burns, lacerations, bruises in various stages of healing, evidence of repeated trauma over an extended period. His voice was carefully controlled, but she could hear the rage simmering beneath. I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to answer honestly. Can you do that? Vera nodded. Who did this to you? 5 years of silence. 5 years of survival through invisibility and endurance. 5 years of believing no one would care, no one would listen, no one would believe her. And yet here was the Alpha, asking. Really asking. Your mate, Vera whispered. Luna Vivienne. Kieran closed his eyes briefly, as if he'd been hoping for a different answer despite already knowing the truth. How long? 4 years, 9 months, and 12 days. Why? The question came out raw. Why would she? What did you do to provoke? He stopped himself, shaking his head. No, that's the wrong question. Nothing justifies this. Nothing. I looked at you, Vera said simply. 5 years ago, you were inspecting the kitchens. You looked at me for 3 seconds. Just a glance, the the same you gave everyone else. But she saw it as a threat. 3 seconds. Kieran's voice was hollow with disbelief. 5 years of torture because I looked at you? She thought I wanted to take her place, that I was trying to seduce you or challenge her position. Vera laughed bitterly. I'm a broken shifter with no family, no status, no wolf. I couldn't challenge a rabbit, let alone a Luna. But she didn't see it that way. Broken shifter? Kieran's brow furrowed. What does that mean? Of course he wouldn't know. Why would the alpha concern himself with the details of a servant's past? Vera pulled her collar down slightly, revealing the edge of her lightning bolt scars. 10 years ago, rogues attacked my family. They killed my parents while I watched. I tried to shift for the first time to save them, but something went wrong. My wolf seized halfway through the transformation and never emerged. The healers call it a blocked wolf. My beast is trapped inside me, unable to surface. Understanding dawned in Kieran's eyes. That's why you work as a servant. Blocked wolves have no legal standing in pack hierarchy. Worse than that, we're considered defective, broken. Most packs exile us or... She stopped, remembering the whispered conversations she'd overheard as a traumatized 14-year-old. Some packs put down blocked wolves like lame horses. But you were allowed to stay. Mabel vouched for me, said I was human enough to work in the kitchens, that I'd be useful, invisible, no threat to anyone. Vera's voice cracked, and I was. For 6 years, I was perfectly invisible. Until your wife decided I wasn't. Kieran moved to the window, staring out at the mountains beyond. I need to hear everything, every detail, from the beginning. Can you do that? So Vera told him. She told him about the first accident with the tea, the way Vivienne had apologized profusely while her eyes promised more pain. She told him about the escalation, pinches becoming hits, hits becoming beatings, beatings becoming sessions of calculated torture in the privacy of Vivienne's chambers. She told him about the threats, the isolation, the way Vivienne ensured no one would believe her by building a public reputation as a kind, concerned mistress who worried about her clumsy attendant. She told him about the riding crop, the heated pokers, the belt, about being denied food for days at a time, about the times Vivienne would burn her and then immediately call for the healer, playing the concerned lady while Vera was forced to claim she'd been careless with the stove. And she told him about yesterday, about the latest escalation. Vivienne had announced at breakfast that she wanted to reward Vera's years of faithful service by arranging a marriage to a merchant from a neighboring territory. But Vera had seen the man a cruel, violent wolf known for beating his previous wives. It would be a death sentence disguised as generosity. She's trying to get rid of me, Vera finished quietly. Either through that marriage, or I think she's planning something worse. The abuse has increased in the past weeks. She's getting bolder, more reckless. Like she doesn't care if someone notices anymore. Because she plans to kill you before anyone can intervene, Kieran said flatly. It wasn't a question. Yes. He turned to face her fully, and the raw fury in his expression made her flinch despite herself. But it wasn't directed at her, she realized that now. He was enraged for her. I need time to think, he said carefully. To plan. What you're describing is not just abuse, it's attempted murder, conspiracy, possibly treason depending on how far this goes. If I act rashly, if I simply arrest Vivienne without proper evidence, her father will use it as an excuse to declare war. He's been looking for a reason to challenge my territory for years. Vera's heart sank. Of course, politics. She'd been stupid to hope. But, Kieran continued, his voice firm, I will not allow you to be harmed again. Starting now, you are under my personal protection. You'll be moved to guest quarters in the secure wing. Guards will be posted. Vivienne will not be allowed near you. She'll know I told you. She'll find a way to. She'll try. Kieran's smile was cold and predatory. Let her. Every move she makes from this point forward will be watched, documented, and used against her. Beta Thorn will conduct a formal investigation, will interview other servants, examine your injuries, build an ironclad case, and when we have enough evidence, when her father cannot possibly defend her actions, you'll what? Divorce her? Banish her? Vera couldn't keep the skepticism from her voice. Alphas don't leave their mates. The bond. There is no bond. The admission seemed to surprise him as much as it did her. Vivienne and I were arranged. A political marriage between our father's territories. We went through the mating ceremony, but the goddess never blessed it with a true bond. I thought, he stopped, jaw clenching. I thought it didn't matter. That respect and partnership would be enough. Clearly, I was a fool. Vera stared at him. No mate bond. That explained so much why Kieran didn't seem to notice his wife's cruelty. Why he could look at her with such cold fury now. Mate bonds were sacred, unbreakable, but a political arrangement? That could be dissolved if sufficient cause was proven. If there's no bond, Vera said slowly. And if you can prove she's committed crimes against pack members, you could annul the marriage. But her father would view it as an insult worthy of war. Yes. Kieran's eyes were calculating now, the rage channeled into strategy. Which is why we need to be smart about this. We need her to trap herself, to commit an act so egregious that even her father cannot defend her. You want to use me as bait? No. The word was absolute. I want to protect you while simultaneously giving her enough rope to hang herself. There's a difference. Was there? Vera wasn't sure. But what choice did she have? Refuse his protection and end up dead within days? At least this way, she had a chance. What do you need me to do? She asked. Tell your story to Beta Thorn. Let him interview you formally. If there are other servants who witnessed anything, Mabel, the head cook, she knows. She tried to help, but we'll speak with her, and anyone else who might have seen something. Kieran moved to his desk, already writing orders. You'll stay in the East Wing, away from Vivienne's quarters. I'll announce that you're being treated for injuries sustained in your fall, which is technically true. That gives us time to investigate without alerting her to the full scope of what we're doing. She's not stupid, Vera warned. She'll know something is wrong the moment I'm not returned to her chambers. Good. Let her know. Let her worry. Worried people make mistakes. Kieran sealed the orders with his ring and called for Thorn. But you're right. That we need to move quickly. Cornered animals are dangerous. Thorn entered at the Alpha's summons, his expression carefully neutral. Alpha? The girl's testimony confirms my suspicions. I want a full investigation launched immediately. Interview the household staff, starting with, he glanced at Vera. Mabel, the head cook, she supplied, starting with Mabel. Discreetly. I don't want word getting back to the Luna that we're questioning her servants. Kieran handed over his orders. Move Vera to the East Wing guest quarters. Post guards. My personal guards, not the regular patrol. No one enters without my express permission. And if the Luna demands access to her attendant, tell her the girl is being treated by the healer and will return to service when she's recovered. Kieran's smile was sharp, which, given the extent of her injuries, could take weeks. Thorn nodded grimly. There's another matter we should discuss. When I examined the servant's back, the scarring pattern is consistent with an incomplete transformation. She claims her wolf is blocked. She told me. Did she tell you that blocked wolves have no legal standing? That technically, she's not considered a pack member? Vera's stomach dropped. Of course. She'd been so focused on telling her story that she'd forgotten the most important detail. Without a wolf, she had no rights. Vivienne could claim Vera was lying, could say she was a delusional human servant, and there would be no way to prove otherwise. I'm aware, Kieran said quietly. Which is why the first step of the investigation will be a formal examination by a healer. If there's even a trace of wolf essence in her blocked or not, she has legal rights as a shifter. That changes everything. Vera's breath caught. A formal examination. They could test for wolf essence, could prove she wasn't fully human. It would give her legal standing, would make her testimony valid in pack law. It would also mean admitting publicly that she was broken, defective. Other packs might demand her exile or execution if they knew she carried dormant wolf blood that could potentially awaken in dangerous ways. I consent, she said before she could second-guess herself. To the examination, whatever you need to prove the truth. Kieran's expression softened slightly. It will be invasive, painful, possibly. The healer will need to search for traces of wolf essence in your blood, your bone marrow. If the block is as complete as you say, it might take hours. I've endured worse, Vera said flatly. And at least this pain serves a purpose. Something flickered in Kieran's eyes, respect, maybe, or sorrow. Thorn? Arrange for healer Margot to conduct the examination tonight. I want results by morning. Yes, Alpha. And Thorn? Kieran's voice dropped lower. If Vivian attempts to interfere with the investigation in any way, if she tries to access the girl or intimidate witnesses, I want to know immediately. Understood? Understood. After Thorn left, Kieran turned back to Vera. She stood slowly, swaying slightly, as exhaustion and pain caught up with her. His hand shot out to steady her, and she flinched instinctively. He immediately released her, holding his hands up in a placating gesture. Sorry, he said quietly. I forget after what you've been through. Touch must be. It's fine. It wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. But his touch hadn't hurt, hadn't been cruel, and that was more than she usually got. Go with Thorn. Get settled in your quarters. Eat something. Rest. Kieran's voice was gentle now. The Alpha's command softened into something almost caring. I know you're frightened. I know you have no reason to trust me. But I give you my word as Alpha of this pack you will not be harmed again. Not while I draw breath. Vera wanted to believe him. Goddess. How she wanted to believe him. But 5 years of torture had taught her that powerful people's words meant nothing. Only their actions mattered. Thank you, Alpha, she said formally, and left before the treacherous hope in her chest could grow any stronger. Subscribe if you believe survivors like Vera deserve to have their voices heard. Because staying silent is exactly what abusers count on. Drop a comment if you've ever felt invisible in your own pain. Vera's story is for every one of you who thought no one was listening. In her private chambers, Luna Vivienne paced like a caged animal, her perfect composure shattered. Kieran had ordered her away from that girl, had looked at her, his own mate, with suspicion, and barely contained fury. And now the little bitch was ensconced in guest quarters with guards posted, as if she were someone important instead of a broken servant who should have been grateful. Vivienne hadn't already killed her. Calm yourself, daughter. Lord Ravik, Vivienne's father and Alpha of the neighboring Nightshade pack, watched his daughter's tantrum with cool disapproval. He'd arrived that morning for a diplomatic visit, but really to pressure Kieran into granting territorial concessions. Getting emotional will not help matters. He knows, Vivienne hissed. Or suspects. The way he looked at me. Then you've been careless. Ravik's voice was cold. I warned you about playing with your pets too openly. She was nothing. A broken wolf, a servant. Who would care what happened to her? Apparently, your mate does. Ravik poured himself wine, unbothered by his daughter's distress. Which creates a problem. If he investigates, if he finds evidence, there is no evidence. I've been careful. Any injuries can be explained as accidents or her own clumsiness. Except now he's looking for evidence. Now he'll question servants, examine her injuries with the intention of finding proof of abuse. Ravik studied his daughter over the rim of his glass. You should have killed her months ago, as I suggested. Quick, clean, no complications. I wanted her to suffer, Vivienne snarled. She looked at him. She thought she could. She thought nothing. She was a servant doing her job. You created this problem out of jealousy and paranoia, and now you must fix it. Vivienne's hands clenched into fists. I could claim she attacked me, that she's been stealing, or plotting against the pack, or... No one will believe you. Not now, not when the Alpha is specifically protecting her. Ravik set down his glass with finality. There is only one solution. The girl must die before she can testify. Make it look like suicide guilt over false accusations, perhaps, or an escape attempt gone wrong. But she cannot be allowed to speak formally against you. He has her guarded, his personal guards. Guards can be bribed. Or distracted. Ravik smiled coldly. You are a Luna, daughter. You have resources. Use them. After her father left, Vivienne stood before her mirror, studying her reflection. Beautiful, perfect, beloved by all. She would not let some broken servant girl destroy everything she'd built. If Kieran wouldn't return the little bitch to her, Fine. She'd find another way. By tomorrow morning, Vera would be dead, and this entire unpleasant situation would be resolved. Chapter 3. Investigation Phase. Part 1. The guest quarters were more luxurious than anywhere Vera had ever slept. A 4-poster bed with silk sheets. A private bathing room with heated water. Windows that overlooked the mountain valleys instead of the servants' courtyard. It felt like a cage made of velvet, beautiful, suffocating, and temporary. She stood by the window as the sun set, watching torchlights flicker to life across the packhouse grounds. 2 guards flanked her door, Kieran's personal sentries, massive wolves who'd served him since before his marriage. They'd nodded respectfully when Thorne delivered her, as if she were someone worth acknowledging instead of a broken servant. Everything is changing too fast. A knock at the door made her jump. One of the guards opened it after a brief exchange, and Mabel hurried in, carrying a tray laden with food. The older woman's eyes were red-rimmed, her face drawn with worry. "Oh, child," Mabel breathed, setting down the tray and pulling Vera into a fierce embrace. "When Beta Thorne came to question me, when he told me you'd finally spoken up, I didn't know whether to be relieved or terrified." "Both," Vera said, returning the hug with trembling arms. "I'm both." They sat together on the bed, and Mabel insisted Vera eat while she talked. The food was rich, roasted chicken, fresh bread, vegetables and butter, the kind of meal served to pack members, not servants. Vera's stomach rebelled after years of scraps and withheld meals, but she forced herself to take small bites. "Beta Thorne asked me everything," Mabel said quietly. "How long I'd known, what I'd witnessed, why I hadn't reported it. I told him the truth, that I'd seen the bruises, heard the screams, known what that woman was doing but couldn't prove it. Who would believe a kitchen servant over the Luna?" She wrung her hands. "I should have tried harder. Should have gone to the Alpha myself. Consequences be damned." "You would have been dismissed or worse," Vera interrupted gently. "Vivienne would have made sure of it. You did what you could, Mabel. You gave me a home when I had nothing. You kept me sane all these years. That's more than anyone else did. It wasn't enough. It was enough to keep me alive." Vera squeezed the older woman's weathered hand. "And now, maybe, it'll be enough to stop her." Mabel's expression turned worried. "The Luna knows something is happening. She's been raging in her chambers since the Alpha dismissed her from his study. Her father is here too, Lord Ravek. That man is poison, Vera. Cunning and ruthless. If he thinks you're a threat to his daughter's position, I know." Vera had seen Ravek during his previous visits, had felt his cold eyes assessing servants like livestock. "But what can I do? Hide forever? Run? The guards would stop you from running. The Alpha has made it clear you're under his protection, but also his watch." Mabel leaned closer. "There's something else. The other servants are talking. Some are glad you finally spoke up, apparently. You're not the only one the Luna has hurt. Others are angry, saying you're causing trouble, that you'll bring Lord Ravek's wrath down on the pack. There's fear spreading through the household." Of course there was. Vera closed her eyes, guilt churning in her stomach. She wasn't just endangering herself anymore. If this led to war between territories, innocent wolves would die. Maybe staying silent would have been. No. She crushed that thought immediately. Silence was how Vivienne had won for 5 years. Silence was complicity. "Let them talk," Vera said, trying to sound braver than she felt. "The truth needs to come out, whatever the cost." Another knock interrupted them. This time it was healer Margot, carrying a leather case of instruments and vials. Behind her came Beta Thorne, his expression grave. "It's time for the examination," Margot said gently. "The Alpha wants proof of your wolf essence tonight." "I'm sorry, child, but this won't be pleasant." Mabel squeezed Vera's hand one more time, then left with Thorne to stand guard outside. The door closed, leaving Vera alone with the healer and the small instruments that would determine her fate. "I need you to lie down," Margot instructed, arranging her tools on a side table. "The test requires a blood sample first, quite a bit of it, I'm afraid. Then I'll need to examine your spine, where the incomplete transformation occurred. If there's dormant wolf essence, it will be concentrated at the point where your shift ceased." Vera lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling as Margot worked. The first needle prick was nothing compared to Vivienne's tortures, but as the healer drew vial after vial of blood, dizziness crept in at the edges of her vision. "Talk to me," Margot said, clearly trying to distract her. "Tell me what you remember about the night your parents died. About the moment you tried to shift." The memories were painful, but Vera forced herself to speak. "I was 14. We were traveling through the border territories when rogues ambushed us. They killed my father first, tore out his throat before he could fully shift. My mother tried to run with me, but they caught her, pinned her down while I watched." Margot's hands were steady as she switched to a new vial, but her expression was sorrowful. "Go on." Something in me snapped. Rage or terror or both. My wolf rose for the first time. I felt her clawing to the surface, felt my bones starting to break and reshape. But then, Vera's voice cracked. Then it just stopped, like hitting a wall. My body was halfway between forms, and it hurt. Everything hurt. I screamed until I passed out, and when I woke up, my parents were dead and I was back in human form, but my wolf never emerged again. She's still there. I can feel her sometimes, but she can't surface. "Trauma-induced block," Margot murmured. "Rare but documented. Your mind shut down the transformation to protect you from the emotional overload. But the wolf essence remains, it has to, or you wouldn't have been able to start shifting at all." She set aside the blood vials and moved to examine Vera's back. "This will hurt. I need to probe the nerve centers along your spine where the shift originated." She wasn't lying. As Margot's fingers pressed against specific points along Vera's spine, pain exploded through her nervous system. Not the sharp pain of Vivienne's beatings, but something deeper, a sensation like touching an exposed nerve, a wound that had never healed. "There," Margot breathed. "Right at the base of your neck. The wolf essence is pooled here, trapped like water behind a dam. Your beast is definitely present, Vera. She's just locked away. Can you prove it, legally? The blood will show elevated wolf markers, enzymes and proteins unique to shifters, combined with the essence concentration in your spine. Yes, I can prove you're a shifter. A blocked one, but legally recognized under pack law." Margot's touch gentled. "This changes everything. You have rights now. Your testimony carries weight." Relief and fear warred in Vera's chest. Rights meant protection, but they also meant she was now a legitimate threat to Vivienne. The Luna couldn't dismiss her as a crazy human servant anymore, which meant Vivienne would be even more desperate to silence her. "How long until you have the blood results?" Vera asked. "I'll work through the night. The Alpha wants confirmation by dawn." Margot began packing her instruments. "Try to rest, child. You'll need your strength for what comes next." After the healer left, Vera tried to follow her advice. She bathed in the heated water, washing away years of grime and blood, and changed into the clean nightgown that had been provided. The bed was too soft, the room too quiet, but eventually, exhaustion dragged her under. She dreamed of lightning and screams, of her mother's face frozen in terror, of Vivienne's cold smile as she pressed a heated poker against skin. She dreamed of golden eyes watching her fall, and a voice promising protection that came 10 years too late. She woke to screaming. Her own screaming, she realized as she bolted upright, her throat raw, sweat soaked through her nightgown, and her hands shook as she tried to orient herself. Guest quarters, safe, guarded. The door burst open, and both guards rushed in with weapons drawn. Behind them came Beta Thorn, his expression alert and dangerous. "What happened?" he demanded, scanning the room for threats. "Nightmare," Vera managed, mortified. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "Nothing to apologize for." Thorn dismissed the guards with a gesture, though they remained just outside the doorway. He moved to the window, checking the locks and peering out into the darkness. "Given what you've endured, nightmares are expected." Vera wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stop shaking. "What time is it?" 3 hours past midnight. Most of the pack house is asleep. Thorn turned back to her, his scarred face thoughtful. "Can't sleep yourself? Every time I close my eyes, I see." She stopped, not wanting to voice the horrors that played behind her eyelids. "It's fine. I'll be fine. You're not fine, and that's understandable." Thorn pulled a chair closer to the bed and sat, careful to maintain a respectful distance. The Alpha asked me to check on you periodically. He's concerned. He doesn't need to be. I'm just a servant who— You're a pack member who was tortured for 5 years while we all failed to notice. The Alpha takes that personally. Thorn's expression was grim. As do I. I should have seen the signs. Should have questioned why you flinched. Why you grew thinner and paler. Why you moved like every step caused pain. Instead, I believed the Luna's explanations. That makes me complicit. You didn't know. Ignorance isn't innocence. Not for a beta. It's my job to know what happens in this pack. To protect the vulnerable. I failed. He leaned forward, his hazel eyes intense. But I won't fail again. The investigation is moving forward. I've interviewed 12 servants so far, and a pattern is emerging. Despite her exhaustion, Vera found herself leaning forward. What kind of pattern? You're not the first. 3 other servants who worked closely with the Luna have similar stories. Sudden accidents, mysterious injuries, requests for reassignment that were denied. 2 of them left the pack entirely, citing family emergencies. But when I sent messengers to track them down, I discovered something interesting. Thorn's smile was cold. They didn't go to family. They went to sanctuary territories, places that offer protection to abused pack members. Sanctuary territories? Vera had never heard of such things. Not widely known, especially not among common pack members, but some alphas maintain safe houses for wolves escaping abuse or persecution. It's a, shall we say, unofficial network. Thorn pulled out a small notebook. I've sent formal requests for testimony from these former servants. If they're willing to come forward, their stories combined with yours create an undeniable pattern of systematic abuse. Hope flickered in Vera's chest. But will they come back? If they escaped, why would they risk? Because the Alpha has promised them protection and formal recognition of their suffering. Because seeing justice done might help them heal. Thorn's voice softened slightly. And because one of them, a girl named Sophie, specifically asked about you. She was the Luna's attendant before you, she said. And I quote, "If that monster got another girl, if someone else suffered what I did, I need to help them. I need to make sure she pays." Tears burned in Vera's eyes. She wasn't alone, had never been alone. Other victims existed, had survived, had escaped, and they were willing to fight. When will they arrive? She asked. Sophie can be here in 3 days. The others need more time. One is pregnant and can't travel quickly. Another is still recovering from injuries sustained before she fled. But they're coming. Thorn closed his notebook. In the meantime, I'm building a case around physical evidence and witness testimony from current pack members. Several servants have admitted to seeing suspicious injuries on you, hearing screams from the Luna's chambers, noticing the way she isolated you from others. Will it be enough? Combined with Margot's medical documentation and the testimony of former victims? Yes. It will be enough to bring formal charges. Thorn's expression turned serious. But there's a complication. Lord Ravec has formally requested a council meeting to discuss slanderous accusations against his daughter. He's positioning this as a political attack rather than a legitimate investigation. Vera's stomach dropped. He'll claim I'm lying to create trouble between territories. Exactly. Which is why the Alpha is insisting on the wolf essence test results. If Margot can prove you're legally a shifter, Lord Ravec can't dismiss you as a delusional human servant. Your testimony becomes legally binding. Thorn stood, moving back toward the door. The council meets in 2 days. Can you face them? Can you stand before the pack elders, Lord Ravec, and the Luna herself, and tell your story? Could she? The thought of facing Vivienne again, of speaking openly about the abuse while her tormentor stared at her, made Vera want to vomit. But what choice did she have? Yes, she said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. I can face them. Good, because the Alpha is betting everything on this. If the council rules in the Luna's favor, if they decide you're lying or exaggerating, she'll walk free. Worse, she'll be vindicated, and you'll be punished for false accusations. Thorn's eyes held hers. This is your one chance, Vera. Make it count. After he left, Vera lay back down, but sleep wouldn't come. 2 days until the council meeting. 2 days to prepare herself for the most terrifying moment of her life. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling for the presence of her blocked wolf. "Are you there?" she thought desperately. "Can you hear me? I need your strength. I can't do this alone." For a moment, nothing. Then so faint she almost missed it. A flicker of response. Not words, not even clear emotion. Just a sense of presence. Her wolf was listening, even if she couldn't surface. "We survived 5 years of hell," Vera thought fiercely. "We can survive 2 more days." Dawn came too quickly. Vera had just drifted back to sleep when another knock pulled her awake. This time it was a servant girl she vaguely recognized, carrying a breakfast tray and looking nervous. "The Alpha requests your presence in his study after you eat," the girl said quietly. Healer Margot has finished her analysis. The moment of truth. Vera forced down toast and tea, her stomach churning, then dressed in the simple but clean clothes that had been provided. No more servant's uniform, these were the kind of practical garments a lower-ranked pack member might wear. Another symbol of her changing status. The walk to Kieran's study felt different in daylight. Pack members moved through the corridors, some nodding respectfully to her, others whispering behind their hands. Word was spreading. The servant who'd accused the Luna, the girl the Alpha was protecting, she was no longer invisible. Kieran's study was crowded when she entered. The Alpha stood behind his desk, flanked by Thorn on one side and Margot on the other. Several elders were present too, the council members who would ultimately decide her fate. And in the corner, looking polished and composed, stood Luna Vivienne with her father beside her. Vera's steps faltered. No one had told her Vivienne would be here. "Ah, Vera." Kieran's voice was carefully neutral, giving nothing away. "Please, come in. We're just reviewing Healer Margot's findings." Vivienne's green eyes locked onto Vera's, and her smile was poisonous. But she said nothing, simply stood there radiating false concern while her father watched with cold calculation. "The blood results are conclusive," Margot announced, holding up several vials. "Elevated wolf enzyme markers, specifically alpha wolf protein sequences. This young woman is definitely a shifter, albeit one with a severely blocked transformation ability." She moved to an anatomical diagram pinned to the wall. "The essence concentration in her spine confirms that her wolf is present but trapped. This is consistent with trauma-induced blocking, exactly as she described." One of the elders, a gray-bearded wolf named Aldrich, leaned forward. "So she has legal standing as a pack member?" "Under the law, yes. A blocked wolf is still a wolf. She has the same rights as any shifter in this territory." "How convenient," Lord Ravik said smoothly, "that this evidence emerges now, just as my daughter faces baseless accusations. Tell me, Healer, how difficult would it be to falsify such test results?" Margot's spine stiffened. "Are you accusing me of fraud, Lord Ravik?" "I'm suggesting that a servant girl with everything to gain from claiming shifter status might find assistance in manufacturing evidence." "My reputation spans 40 years, Margot snapped. "I have no reason to lie, and every reason to maintain my professional integrity. These results are genuine." Quote, "Then explain this." Vivienne spoke for the first time, her voice sweet and sad. "If this girl is truly a shifter who's been in my service for 5 years, why did she never mention her status before? Why hide her nature if it would grant her legal protections?" The question hit like a blade. Several elders nodded, clearly finding it suspicious. "Because..." Vera's voice came out too quiet. She cleared her throat and tried again. "Because blocked wolves are often treated worse than humans. We're considered defective, dangerous. Some packs execute blocked shifters to prevent potential wild transformations. I hid my nature to survive." "How tragic," Vivienne said, her eyes glittering. "And yet, despite this fear, despite years of supposedly hiding, you suddenly reveal your status now? When it benefits your accusations against me? The timing is remarkably convenient." "The timing," Kieran cut in coldly, "is because I ordered a formal investigation after witnessing evidence of abuse. The test results simply confirm what we suspected, that Vera has legal standing to bring formal charges." Charges based on what? Ravek demanded. The word of a servant with obvious mental instability? Look at her, she can barely stand without trembling. This is clearly a disturbed individual, making wild accusations. Her back tells a different story. Thorn's voice was hard as stone. Would you like to see the documentation, Lord Ravek? The photographs, the measurements, the catalog of injuries that span years? Or perhaps you'd prefer to hear testimony from the 3 other servants who've come forward with similar experiences? Silence fell over the study. Vivienne's mask flickered for just an instant, revealing shock beneath the composure. She hadn't known about the other victims. This is absurd, she said, recovering quickly. Servants gossip. They exaggerate. They create drama where none exists. I've been nothing but kind to my attendants. And this is how I'm repaid? With lies and accusations? Then you won't object to a formal trial, Kieran said flatly. To facing your accusers before the full council and presenting your defense? A trial? Ravek's voice rose. You would subject the Luna of your pack, my daughter, to a common trial like a criminal? This is an outrage. This is justice. Kieran's eyes flashed amber. If Vivienne is innocent, a trial will prove it. If she's guilty, the pack deserves to know what kind of Luna they've been serving. The elders exchanged glances. Finally, Aldrich spoke. The law is clear. If formal charges are brought by a legal pack member, the accused has the right to trial before the council. We cannot deny this, regardless of the accused's rank. 2 days, another elder added. We'll convene the full council in 2 days. Both sides will present evidence and testimony. The council will then vote on guilt or innocence. And what happens to my daughter in the meantime? Ravek demanded. Will she be imprisoned like a common criminal? She'll remain in her quarters, Kieran said, under guard, for her protection, and to ensure she doesn't interfere with witnesses. House arrest. Vivienne's laugh was brittle. My own mate places me under house arrest based on the ravings of a broken servant. How romantic. If you're innocent, Kieran said quietly, you have nothing to fear from the truth. The meeting dissolved into arguments about procedure and protocols, but Vera barely heard them. Her eyes were locked on Vivienne, watching the Luna's perfect mask crack bit by bit, and beneath the cracks, Vera saw pure, murderous rage. She'll try to kill me before the trial. Vera realized with cold certainty. She has to. It's her only way out. As if reading her thoughts, Thorn moved closer, his presence a wall of protection between Vera and the Luna. The girl stays under my personal guard, he announced. No one, not servants, not pack members, not visiting dignitaries, gets near her without my express permission. How very paranoid, Vivienne murmured. But her eyes promised violence. The meeting ended with the elders filing out, still arguing amongst themselves. Ravek left with Vivienne, his hand clamped on her arm like a vice. Their whispered conversation was too quiet for human ears, but Vera caught fragments with her enhanced shifter hearing. I shouldn't have been so careless. Take care of it tonight. Can't risk the trial. Can't risk the trial. Terror spiked through Vera's veins. Thorn caught her expression and leaned close. You heard? She nodded mutely. Good. That fear will keep you alert. His voice dropped lower. Because they're right, they can't risk the trial. Which means tonight, tomorrow night at the latest, someone will try to kill you. And we're going to catch them in the act. Vera's eyes widened. You're using me as bait. I'm using their desperation against them, Thorn corrected. Every entrance to your quarters will be watched. Every servant who approaches will be vetted. If someone tries to poison you, bribe your guards, or sneak into your room, we'll know, and we'll have proof of conspiracy to commit murder on top of the abuse charges. And if your guards miss something? If they succeed? Thorn's smile was predatory. They won't. I've faced down rogue armies and enemy alphas. I'm not about to let one pampered Luna outsmart me. Famous last words, Vera thought, but she nodded, because what choice did she have? Run? Where? Trust Kieran's protection? What else could she do? As Thorn escorted her back to her quarters, Vera felt eyes watching from every shadow. Pack members whispered as she passed. Servants ducked their heads. And somewhere in the pack house, Vivienne was planning murder. 2 days until the trial. Just survive 2 more days, Vera told herself. 2 days. And the truth comes out. 2 days. And justice might finally be served. But as she lay in her too soft bed that night, listening to guards pace outside her door and jumping at every creak of floorboards, Vera couldn't shake the feeling that 2 days might as well be an eternity. And eternity was exactly how long Vivienne intended to make her wait. Chapter Veer, Investigation Phase, Part 2. The attempt came at midnight on the first night. Vera was lying awake in the darkness, staring at the ceiling and counting her heartbeats to stay calm, when she heard the softest scrape of metal against stone. Not from the door where the guards stood watch, but from the window. Her enhanced shifter hearing picked up breathing, slow and controlled. Someone was scaling the outside wall. Terror locked her muscles for 3 precious seconds. Then training years of learning to move silently to avoid Vivienne's wrath took over. She rolled out of bed without a sound and pressed herself against the wall beside the window, watching the shutters slowly ease open. A shadow slipped through. Male, lean and wiry, dressed in dark clothes with a blade gleaming in his hand. Not a pack member, his scent was wrong, carrying the bitter edge of a mercenary who'd sold his loyalty to the highest bidder. He moved toward the bed, raising his blade for a killing strike at the lumped blankets Vera had arranged. She should scream. Should alert the guards. But some instinct, her blocked wolf stirring in warning, told her to wait, to see, to learn. The assassin struck, blade plunging into pillows. He froze when he realized his mistake, spinning toward where Vera stood, hidden in shadow. "Looking for me?" she whispered. He lunged. She dove sideways, screaming now, "Guards! Thorn!" As the blade sliced through the space where she'd been standing, the door burst open, guards flooding in with weapons drawn, and the assassin made a desperate leap back toward the window. He almost made it. Beta Thorn appeared from the shadows of the balcony outside, because of course he'd been waiting there, expecting exactly this, and caught the assassin by the throat. One savage twist, and the man crumpled, unconscious but alive. "Well," Thorn said, dragging the limp form back inside. That was educational. Vera's legs gave out. She slid down the wall, shaking violently as adrenaline crashed through her system. She'd almost died. If she'd been asleep, if her wolf-enhanced hearing hadn't caught the approach, if she hadn't moved. "Breathe," Thorn ordered, kneeling beside her while his guards secured the unconscious assassin. "In through your nose, out through your mouth. You're safe. You did exactly right. He had a knife. And you evaded him long enough for us to intervene. That takes incredible presence of mind." Thorn's voice was steady, grounding. "Look at me, Vera. You survived. You're alive. And now we have proof." He was right. As her panic subsided, cold satisfaction replaced it. They had an assassin caught red-handed attempting murder. All they needed was to make him talk. Alpha Kieran arrived moments later, his hair disheveled and eyes blazing gold. He took in the scene, the assassin on the floor, the slashed bedding, Vera trembling against the wall and his control visibly frayed. "Who sent you?" he demanded, crouching before the now stirring assassin. "Who paid for this?" The mercenary spat blood, his expression defiant. "Go to hell, Alpha. I don't talk." "Really?" Kieran's smile was terrifying. "Because I think you will. See, attempted murder of a pack member under my protection is a capital crime. But conspiracy to commit murder? That carries different penalties, lighter sentences, possible clemency." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. "Tell me who hired you, and you live. Stay silent, and I'll let my beta get creative with his interrogation techniques. He's very good at his job." Thorn cracked his knuckles meaningfully. The assassin's defiance wavered. Vera could see the calculation in his eyes. Loyalty to an employer versus his own survival. "I want guarantees. Formal protection, relocation, coin." "Done," Kieran said immediately. "Thorn, witness this. I formally grant this wolf sanctuary and compensation in exchange for testimony against whoever hired him." The assassin slumped in defeat. It was the Luna's father, Lord Ravik, He paid me 10 gold marks to kill the servant girl and make it look like suicide. Said she was unstable, that no one would question it. The words fell into the room like stones. Ravik himself, Thorn breathed. Not even using intermediaries. He's either desperate or arrogant. Both, Kieran said grimly. He turned to Vera, his expression softening. Are you hurt? Did he? I'm fine, she managed. Scared, but fine. You won't be sleeping here tonight. Or any night until the trial. Kieran stood, already issuing orders. Thorn, move her to the Alpha's wing. My personal quarters have additional protections, wards, spelled locks, guards who've been with me since childhood. If anyone gets through those defenses, they'll have to go through me first. The Alpha's wing? Vera's voice rose in disbelief. I can't, that's not appropriate. Neither is you being murdered in your sleep. Kieran's tone brooked no argument. I have guest rooms in my quarters. You'll stay there, and I'll sleep in the connecting chamber. No one will touch you without going through me, and 6 elite guards. Vivienne was going to lose her mind. Good. Some vengeful part of Vera thought. Let her rage. Let her see what it feels like to lose control. Within the hour, Vera found herself in rooms more luxurious than anything she'd imagined. The Alpha's private wing was a fortress within the pack house. Thick walls, enchanted windows that would alert to any intrusion, and guards who looked like they could tear apart armies. The guest chamber she'd been given connected to Kieran's personal bedroom through a shared sitting room. She could hear him moving around, giving orders, his deep voice a constant reassurance that she wasn't alone. Try to rest, he said, appearing in the connecting doorway. He'd changed into sleeping clothes, simple pants, and a loose shirt that did nothing to hide his powerful build. I know that's probably impossible after tonight, but try. Tomorrow will be difficult. Tomorrow? Vera was so exhausted she'd lost track of time. Sophie arrives tomorrow. The former attendant who escaped Vivienne before you. Thorn wants you to meet with her, to coordinate your testimonies. Kieran's expression was troubled. Are you ready for that? Hearing someone else's story, knowing you weren't the only one? Was she? Vera wasn't sure. Part of her desperately wanted to meet another survivor, to know she wasn't alone, but another part feared what horrors Sophie might reveal, what shared nightmares they'd have to relive. I need to be ready, she said finally. This isn't just about me anymore. It's about every servant Vivienne hurt, every future victim we can prevent. Something flickered in Kieran's eyes, respect, maybe, or admiration. You're stronger than you know. Most wolves would have broken under what you endured. I did break, multiple times. Vera touched her shoulder, where the lightning bolt scars lay hidden beneath her nightgown. I'm just good at pretending I didn't. That's not breaking. That's surviving. Kieran moved closer, but stopped a careful distance away, respecting her space. For what it's worth. I'm sorry. Sorry I didn't see, didn't notice, didn't protect you sooner. You were right in front of me for years, and I was too blind to. You didn't know me. I was invisible by design. That's not your fault. I'm the Alpha. It's my job to know, to protect. His hands clenched into fists. When I saw those marks on your arms in the stairwell, when I realized what had been happening under my own roof. He stopped, breathing hard. I wanted to kill her. My own mate. I've never felt rage like that before. The confession hung between them, heavy with implications. Vera studied his face, the strong jaw, the gold eyes that could shift from gentle to lethal in heartbeats, the protective fury that radiated from him even now. Why do you care? She asked quietly. I'm just a servant. A broken shifter who should mean nothing to an Alpha. You're not just anything. Kieran's voice was rough. You're a pack member who suffered because I failed in my duty. And you're... He stopped abruptly, shaking his head. Get some rest. We'll talk more tomorrow. He retreated to his room before she could ask what he'd been about to say. Vera lay in the massive guest bed, staring at the connecting door, and wondering about the Alpha who'd upended his entire household to protect her. Don't get attached, she warned herself. He's doing his duty. That's all. Don't mistake protection for anything deeper. But as she finally drifted toward sleep, she could have sworn she felt eyes watching over her, not with malice, but with fierce, protective warmth. Sophie arrived just after dawn, and Vera knew immediately that they were kindred spirits. The young woman was perhaps 22, with auburn hair and brown eyes that held the same haunted wariness Vera recognized in her own mirror. She moved carefully, as if expecting attack from any direction, and flinched when a servant closed a door too loudly. They met in a small private study under Thorne's supervision. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other, two survivors seeing their own trauma reflected back. "Your hair," Sophie said finally. "You cut it short after she grabbed you by it too many times, didn't you?" Vera touched her choppy, shoulder-length hair self-consciously. "How did you—" "Because I did the same thing. Sheared it off myself after she used it to drag me across her chambers." Sophie's smile was bitter. "She made me grow it back. Said I looked like a peasant. Then she used hot wax to rip it out, strand by strand when she was angry." The casual horror in her voice made Vera's stomach turn. "When did you escape?" 6 years ago. I was her attendant for 10 months before I couldn't take it anymore. I tried to report her to the beta, the old one, before Thorne took the position, but he dismissed me. Said I was being dramatic, that the Luna was a saint, and I should be grateful for her attention." Sophie's hands trembled as she accepted tea from a servant. "That night, she beat me so badly I couldn't walk for 3 days. When I recovered enough to move, I ran. Didn't even pack, just ran." "Where did you go?" "Sanctuary territory in the Northlands. Alpha Rowan runs a safe house for abused wolves. He took me in, no questions asked, and gave me protection while I healed." Sophie's expression softened slightly. "He's good people. When Beta Thorne sent word about what was happening here, about another girl suffering what I did, Rowan himself told me I should come testify. Said it was time someone held that bitch accountable." "Can you testify?" Thorne asked from where he sat taking notes. "Can you stand before the council and tell them what she did?" "I can. I will." Sophie turned to Vera, reaching across the table to grip her hand. "We're going to bury her. Together. Every scar, every burn, every moment of torture, we're going to lay it all out for the pack to see, and they won't be able to ignore it. Not when there's 2 of us. Not when the evidence is so damning." Vera squeezed back, tears burning her eyes. "Thank you. For coming back. For risking." "No risk. I'm under formal Alpha protection now. If anything happens to me, it's an act of war against the Northlands pack." Sophie's smile turned sharp. "Ravik might be willing to attack Silverpine's Alpha, but he won't dare provoke Rowan. That psychotic wolf once killed 15 rogues single-handedly to protect an abused servant. He doesn't play games when it comes to justice." They spent the next 3 hours coordinating their testimonies. The stories were sickeningly similar. The false kindness in public, the calculated cruelty in private, the beatings that left minimal visible marks, the psychological torture designed to break them completely. "She has a favorite game," Sophie said, her voice hollow. "She'd hurt you, then force you to thank her for the lesson. If you didn't sound grateful enough, she'd hurt you worse. I know that game." Vera's throat tightened. "She made me thank her for burning my hand with a candle. Said she was teaching me to be more careful around fire. She told me she was correcting my flaws when she broke 2 of my fingers for serving tea at the wrong temperature." Sophie's laugh was broken. "Goddess, I hate her. I've spent 6 years trying to heal, trying to forgive, trying to be better than her. But right now, in this moment, I just hate her." "That's okay," Vera said softly. "Hate keeps you alive sometimes." Thorne had stopped writing, his expression dark. "The council needs to hear this. All of it. The pattern, the methodology, the way she weaponized her position." He looked between them. "Are you both prepared for what happens at trial? Because Vivienne will try to destroy you on that stand. She'll call you liars, claim you're conspiring for coin or revenge, suggest you're mentally unstable. Let her try." Sophie's voice was steel. "I've got medical records from the sanctuary. Documented injuries, healer reports, witness statements from the pack that took me in, and I'm not some broken servant girl anymore. I'm a recognized member of the Northlands pack with full legal standing. My word carries weight, and I have Margot's documentation," Vera added, plus the testimony of current servants who witnessed the abuse, plus an assassin who admitted Ravik hired him to kill me. That's not conspiracy, that's pattern of behavior. Thorn nodded slowly. It's strong, but Lord Ravik is cunning. He'll find angles to attack. Be ready for anything. The rest of the day was spent in preparation. Thorn coached them on how to testify, how to stay calm under hostile questioning, how to present their stories in a way that was compelling but not overly emotional. The council would be looking for facts, not hysteria. Kieran joined them for the evening session, and Vera watched him interact with Sophie, with the same protective gentleness he showed her. This was who he was. She realized an alpha who genuinely cared about his pack members, even the ones society deemed disposable. Your former beta, Kieran said to Sophie, his voice tight with anger. The one who dismissed your report, what was his name? Garrett. He left your service about 5 years ago, I heard. Took a position with a pack, in the Southern Territories. He'll answer for his failure. Kieran's eyes flashed gold. After the trial, I'm launching a full investigation into pack protocols. Every complaint that was dismissed, every report that was ignored, anyone who enabled Vivian's abuse will face consequences. That's going to be a lot of wolves, Sophie said quietly. The entire household staff saw things, even if they didn't understand what they were seeing, servants whispered. Guards noticed, but no one wanted to believe the Luna was capable of such things. Willful blindness is still complicity. Kieran's jaw set. This pack will learn to be better, to see better, to protect those who can't protect themselves. As evening fell, Sophie was settled in quarters near Vera's, also in the Alpha's wing, also heavily guarded. The two women sat together in Vera's sitting room, neither quite ready to be alone. Can I ask you something? Sophie said after a long silence. Your scars, the lightning bolt ones, those weren't from her, were they? No, those are from the night my parents died. I tried to shift for the first time, and it went wrong. Vera's hand went to her shoulder instinctively. My wolf got trapped. She's still there, I can feel her, but she can't emerge. Can you ever get her back? Maybe. Margot thinks the block is psychological. My mind shut down the transformation to protect me from emotional overload. If I could somehow work through that trauma, if I could feel safe enough to let go. Vera shrugged helplessly. But I've never felt that safe. Not since I was 14. You might, Sophie said gently. After the trial. After Vivienne is gone. You might finally feel safe enough to heal. Safe. Such a simple word. Such an impossible concept. But maybe, just maybe, Sophie was right. The night before the trial, Vera couldn't sleep. She stood at the window of her guest chamber, watching the moon rise over the mountains and trying to calm her racing heart. Tomorrow she would stand before the entire pack and expose Vivienne's cruelty. Tomorrow justice would finally hopefully be served. A soft knock made her turn. Kieran stood in the connecting doorway, his expression concerned. Can't sleep? How did you guess? I could hear you pacing through the wall. He moved into the room but kept his distance, always careful not to crowd her. Tomorrow will change everything. It's natural to be afraid. I'm not afraid of testifying. Vera turned back to the window. I'm afraid of failing, of the council not believing us, of Vivienne winning anyway, of 5 years of torture meaning nothing. Your suffering already means something. It means you survived. It means you were strong enough to speak up when others couldn't. Kieran moved to stand beside her, both of them staring out at the night. Whatever the council decides, your truth has been heard. That matters. Does it? If she walks free, if she gets to hurt someone else, what good did speaking up do? She won't walk free. I'll make sure of it. There was absolute certainty in Kieran's voice. Even if the council somehow fails, even if politics override justice, I'll find a way. I'll dissolve the marriage, send her back to her father, bar her from ever holding power again. She will not hurt another wolf under my protection. Vera turned to look at him, really look at him. In the moonlight, his features were sharp and beautiful, a warrior's face, but with gentleness in his eyes when he looked at her. Why do you care so much? And don't say duty. This goes beyond duty. Kieran was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. Do you believe in mate bonds? The question caught her off guard. Yes. I mean, they're real. Everyone knows that. They are, and they're sacred. When the goddess blesses a pairing, when two wolves recognize each other as true mates, it's… He stopped, struggling for words. It's everything. Soul-deep recognition, absolute certainty, the kind of bond that can't be faked or forced. You and Vivienne don't have that bond. No, we don't. Our marriage was arranged, and I accepted it because duty demanded it. But there was never a bond. Never that recognition. His eyes met hers, and Vera's breath caught at the intensity there. Until I saw you in that stairwell. Until I touched your arm, and felt my wolf rise in recognition. Until every instinct I possessed started screaming mine. The world tilted. What are you saying? Vera whispered. I'm saying that you're my true mate. Kieran's voice was raw with emotion. The goddess chose you for me, and I was too blind to see it until you were right in front of me, bleeding and terrified. I'm saying that every protective instinct, every moment of rage at what was done to you, it's because my soul recognized yours, and I failed to protect my own mate for 5 years. Vera couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what he was telling her. True mates. But I'm broken, she managed. No wolf, no status, nothing to offer an alpha. You're everything. Kieran's hand rose slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her cheek with devastating gentleness. You're strong and resilient and brave. You survived hell and came out fighting. And you're mine, my true mate, my equal. My Luna, if you'll have me after we sort out this mess. I don't. This is too much. I can't. I know it's too much, too soon. You've been traumatized for years. The last thing you need is pressure from me. Kieran dropped his hand, stepping back. I'm not asking for anything right now. I just wanted you to know. Wanted you to understand why I'll move heaven and earth to protect you. Why tomorrow's trial matters so much to me. You're not just a pack member I failed, you're my mate. And I will burn the world down before I let anyone hurt you again. Tears spilled down Vera's cheeks. She didn't know if they were from fear or relief, or desperate, fragile hope. If we're mates, if the bond is real, why can't I feel it? Because your wolf is blocked. Mate bonds require both wolves to recognize each other. Until your beast can surface, until she can meet mine, the bond won't complete. Kieran's expression was tender. But I can wait. I'll wait as long as it takes for you to heal, for your wolf to emerge, for you to feel safe enough to trust me. Years, if necessary. I've already wasted 5 years being blind. I won't waste another moment. Vera's mind reeled. This morning she'd been a tortured servant with no future. Now she was allegedly the true mate of an alpha, with legal standing and guards and people fighting for her justice. It was too much, too fast, too impossible. I need time, she whispered, to process this, to take all the time you need. Kieran moved back toward the connecting door. For now, just focus on tomorrow. On getting through the trial, the rest. He smiled, and it was full of warmth and promise. The rest can wait. After he left, Vera collapsed onto her bed, her mind spinning. True mates. Her hand pressed against her chest, feeling for her blocked wolf. Did you know? She asked silently. Is that why you've been stirring lately? Because you recognized him? The response was stronger this time, not words, but emotion. Recognition. Longing. A desperate need to surface, to complete the bond, to claim their mate. But the block held firm, built from 10 years of trauma and survival. Breaking it would require feeling safe, feeling whole, feeling like she deserved something good. Tomorrow's trial would determine if that was even possible. Vera closed her eyes and tried to rest. Chapter 5. Relationship Development. The council chamber was built like an arena, a circular room with seats rising in tiers, allowing the entire pack to witness important proceedings. Every seat was filled. Wolves pressed shoulder to shoulder, their collective tension making the air thick and electric. Vera stood in the center of the chamber, feeling hundreds of eyes on her. The council of elders sat in the highest tier, 7 ancient wolves, whose word was law. Below them, Pack members of every rank crowded together, desperate to witness this historic moment. And directly across from her, flanked by her father and a team of advisors, stood Luna Vivienne. She looked perfect, as always, hair immaculately styled, gown flowing and elegant, face arranged in an expression of wounded dignity. The mask was flawless, but Vera had seen beneath it, and today, everyone else would too. Alpha Kieran presided from a raised platform to the council's right, maintaining the appearance of impartiality even though Vera could feel his protective gaze on her constantly. Beta Thorn stood ready to present evidence, and beside Vera, equally nervous but determined, stood Sophie. Elder Aldrich called the chamber to order. We are gathered to hear formal charges brought by Pack members Vera Thorn and Sophie Clearwater against Luna Vivienne Ravek. The charges include systematic abuse, torture, conspiracy to commit murder, and violation of Pack law regarding the treatment of servants. His grave voice carried through the chamber. These are serious accusations. Both sides will present evidence and testimony. The council will then deliberate and vote. Do both parties understand? Yes, Elder, Vera and Sophie said in unison. Yes, Elder, Vivienne said, her voice trembling with false emotion. Though I still cannot believe I must defend myself against such vicious lies. If they are lies, the truth will reveal it. Aldrich gestured to Thorn. Beta, present the evidence. What followed was brutal and methodical. Thorn laid out years of documentation, healer reports, witness testimonies, photographs of injuries. He called forward servants who'd heard screams from Vivienne's chambers, who'd seen unexplained bruises, who'd noticed how attendance under the Luna's care always seemed to deteriorate. Mabel testified with tears streaming down her weathered face. I knew that girl was suffering. I saw the marks, heard the cries, but I was a coward. I did nothing. And I'll carry that shame to my grave. Former servants came forward, 3 besides Sophie, each with their own horror stories. Burns, beatings, psychological torture designed to break them completely. The pattern was undeniable. Then came healer Margot's testimony about Vera's injuries, complete with detailed medical drawings that made several Pack members gasp in horror. The lightning bolt scars from her blocked transformation, the layer upon layer of abuse, accumulated over nearly 5 years. No servant sustains these injuries through clumsiness, Margot stated firmly. This is systematic torture. I've treated battlefield wounds less severe than what this girl endured. Throughout it all, Vivienne's mask remained perfect. She shook her head sadly, dabbed at dry eyes with a handkerchief, played the role of wronged Luna to perfection, until Sophie took the stand. I was Luna Vivienne's attendant 6 years ago, Sophie said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. She broke 2 of my fingers for serving tea at the wrong temperature. She ripped out my hair with hot wax when I looked at Alpha Kieran during a pack gathering. She burned me with pokers, beat me with a riding crop, and told me I was lucky she didn't kill me outright. Lies, Vivienne said sharply. You were dismissed for theft. You're clearly here seeking revenge. I have medical records. Sophie produced a thick folder. From the sanctuary territory where I fled. Healer reports documenting every injury, dated and witnessed. The healers noted that my injuries were consistent with long-term abuse, not accidents or self-infliction. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This wasn't just one servant's word anymore. This was documented evidence from an outside territory with no reason to lie. Lord Ravek stood abruptly. This is clearly a conspiracy. These girls have coordinated their stories, manufactured evidence, all to bring down a Luna they're jealous of. Then explain the assassin, Kieran said coldly. The chamber fell silent. Thorn brought forward the mercenary who'd tried to kill Vera. The man looked haggard, his face bruised from his capture, but his testimony was clear. Lord Ravek hired me. Paid me 10 gold marks to kill the servant girl and make it look like suicide. Said she was spreading lies about his daughter and needed to be silenced. The assassin's voice was flat, resigned. I've done wet work before, but this felt wrong. A lord hiring murder over servant gossip? That's not normal. That's desperation. Ravek's face turned purple. This mercenary is clearly lying for clemency. The beta probably tortured a false confession from him. We have the gold marks, Thorn interrupted, holding up a pouch. found in his possession, traced back to your personal treasury through the mint marks. We also have testimony from the inn where you met him, from the servant who delivered your message arranging the meeting. Would you like me to call them forward? The evidence was damning, undeniable. Even the council members who'd been skeptical were leaning forward now, their expressions grave. Your daughter tortured multiple servants, Kieran said, his voice carrying absolute authority through the chamber. When one of them finally spoke up, you attempted to have her murdered. These aren't accusations, these are facts, backed by documentation and witness testimony from multiple sources. My daughter is Luna of this pack, Ravek roared. You would believe servants over nobility? You would tear apart an alliance between our territories over the complaints of broken wolves who have rights under pack law? Elder Aldrich cut in sharply. Rights you seem to have forgotten in your arrogance. Both girls have been confirmed as shifters through healer examination. Their testimony is legally valid. Then the tests were falsified. Clearly this entire pack is conspiring. Careful, Lord Ravek. Aldrich's voice turned glacial. You're dangerously close to accusing this council of corruption. I suggest you think very carefully before making that claim. Ravek's mouth snapped shut, but his eyes promised murder. Now came the hardest part. Vera's personal testimony. She walked to the center of the chamber, feeling every eye on her. Her hands shook, but she forced them still. This was it. This was her moment to be heard. Tell us your story, Aldrich said gently. In your own words. Start from the beginning. So Vera told them everything. The 3 seconds that had doomed her, the escalating abuse that spanned nearly 5 years, the calculated cruelty, the psychological torture, the way Vivienne had weaponized her position to ensure no one would believe a lowly servant's accusations. She described being burned with pokers, being beaten unconscious, being denied food for days at a time, being forced to thank her abuser for lessons or face worse punishment. She told them about the scars on her back, about the blocked wolf that made her vulnerable, about hiding in the kitchen for 6 years before Vivienne noticed her, about becoming invisible as a survival strategy. And she told them about the merchant. Vivienne had planned to marry her off to a known abuser who'd beaten his previous wives to death. She wasn't just trying to get rid of me, Vera said, her voice cracking with emotion. She was trying to have me killed slowly, in a way that wouldn't trace back to her. A wedding gift that was really an execution. The chamber was deathly silent. Several pack members were openly crying. Others looked sick. Vivienne rose slowly, her perfect mask finally beginning to crack. These accusations are preposterous. I've been nothing but kind to my servants, nothing but charitable to the less fortunate. Then why did I find this? Thorne produced a leather journal, its pages worn. This was recovered from your private chambers during our investigation. It's a diary of sorts. Would you like me to read entries? Vivienne's face went white. That's private property. You had no right. I had every right under pack law when investigating credible abuse allegations. Thorne opened the journal, and his expression turned disgusted. Shall I read the entry from 2 months ago? The one where you detail burning Vera with a candle and forcing her to thank you? Or perhaps the one where you describe her screams as satisfying? Or maybe, enough. Vivienne's composure shattered completely, her face twisted with rage, all pretense of gentle Luna vanishing. You want to know the truth? Fine. Yes, I hurt her. Yes, I made her suffer. And she deserved it. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Even Ravek reached for his daughter, trying to silence her. But she shook him off. She looked at my mate. Vivienne's voice rose to a shriek. For 3 seconds she looked at him, and I saw it in her eyes, that pathetic hope that maybe an alpha would notice her, a broken servant with delusions of grandeur. So yes, I made sure she understood her place. I made sure she learned that you don't covet what belongs to your betters. I didn't covet anything, Vera said quietly, but her voice carried. I was just doing my job. You tortured me for 5 years because you were jealous of a glance that meant nothing. It meant everything. Vivienne whirled on her, all pretense gone. You think I didn't see how he looked at you in that stairwell? How his wolf responded to you? I spent 5 years as his mate and never got that reaction. But you, with your sad eyes and broken wolf, you caught his attention immediately. The confession hung in the air, damning and complete. Elder Aldrich's voice cut through the shocked silence. Luna Vivienne, you have just admitted, before this entire council and pack, to 5 years of systematic torture. You've admitted to abusing multiple servants, and your diary provides written documentation of your crimes. He looked at the other elders, who nodded gravely. This council doesn't require further deliberation. The evidence is overwhelming. The confession is clear. No. Ravik's voice was deadly quiet. You cannot do this. If you pass judgment against my daughter, if you strip her of her title, you declare war on the Nightshade Pack. Then we declare war, Kieran said, standing. His eyes blazed gold, his alpha presence rolling through the chamber like a physical force. Because I will not tolerate abuse of pack members. I will not allow political considerations to override justice. If you want war, Ravik, you'll get it. But your daughter will still face consequences for her crimes. The elders conferred in hushed whispers. Finally, Aldrich spoke. The council finds Luna Vivienne Ravik guilty of all charges. We hereby strip her of all titles, all rank, all privileges associated with her position. Her marriage to Alpha Kieran is annulled, effective immediately, and we sentence her to banishment from this territory, never to return under penalty of death. No! Vivienne lunged toward Vera, her face twisted with hatred. You bitch! You ruined everything! I should have killed you years ago. Guards intercepted her, wrestling her back. But she kept screaming, the perfect mask completely shattered. You were nothing, a broken servant with no future, and now you've destroyed me. I'll kill you. Do you hear me? I'll find a way. I'll hire assassins. I'll hunt you until... Enough. Ravik's voice cracked like a whip. He looked at his daughter with cold disgust. You've embarrassed me enough. Guards, remove her. I'll arrange transport back to Nightshade territory tonight. Father. Vivienne's voice turned pleading. Father, please. You can't abandon me. You brought this on yourself with your carelessness and stupidity. Ravik's expression was ice. I warned you to be subtle. Instead, you documented your crimes in writing and confessed publicly. You're a liability I can no longer afford. The guards dragged Vivienne from the chamber, her screams echoing off stone walls. And just like that, it was over. The council dismissed the assembly. Pack members filed out in stunned silence, processing what they'd witnessed. Vera stood in the center of the chamber, her legs trembling, hardly able to believe it had actually happened. Justice. After 5 years. Finally, justice. Sophie grabbed her in a fierce hug, both of them crying. We did it, Sophie whispered. We actually did it. You both did, Kieran said, approaching slowly. His eyes were soft as they met Vera's. You were incredibly brave. Both of you. What happens now? Vera asked, her voice hoarse from testimony. Now? Kieran's smile was gentle. Now you heal. Now you rebuild. Now you finally get to live without fear. The next weeks passed in a blur. Vivienne was escorted out of pack territory within hours of the trial, her belongings packed and sent after her. Lord Ravik left the same night, his expression promising that this wasn't over, but for now, at least, Vera was safe. The pack's reaction was mixed. Many were horrified by what had been revealed, apologetic that they hadn't seen the abuse happening. Others were angry at Vivienne for her crimes, at themselves for their blindness, at the system that had allowed such things. Kieran launched the promised investigation into pack protocols. Several wolves who'd dismissed complaints or turned blind eyes to suspicious injuries faced consequences, demotions, public reprimands, mandatory training on recognizing abuse. And slowly, carefully, Vera began to heal. She remained in the Alpha's wing, in those beautiful guest quarters that were becoming her sanctuary. Kieran was respectful, giving her space while making it clear she was welcome for as long as she needed. They saw each other daily, brief conversations over meals, quiet evenings in the shared sitting room, moments of tentative connection. He never pushed, never demanded, never made her feel pressured about the mate bond he'd revealed. He was simply there, steady, patient, safe. One evening, 3 weeks after the trial, Vera found herself in that sitting room with Kieran, both reading by the fireplace. It was domestic and comfortable, and something about the peaceful normalcy made her brave. "Tell me about mate bonds," she said quietly. Kieran looked up from his book, surprise flickering across his features. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. How they work, what they feel like, why you're so certain about us." Vera set aside her own book. "I've heard stories, but I've never experienced one. My wolf is blocked, so I can't feel what you feel. Help me understand." Kieran was quiet for a long moment, choosing his words carefully. "It's like recognition at a soul-deep level. The moment I touched your arm in that stairwell, my wolf knew. Not intellectually, not through logic, just absolute certainty. This is my mate. This is my other half. This is the wolf the goddess chose for me. But you'd been married to Vivienne for 5 years. How did you not know she wasn't your mate?" "Because I didn't have a comparison. I knew our bond felt empty, that something was missing, but I attributed it to an arranged marriage. I thought maybe that was normal." His expression turned rueful. "Then I felt the real thing with you, and I realized what I'd been missing. It's the difference between candlelight and sunshine. You don't realize how dim one is until you experience the other." Vera processed this. "And it doesn't bother you? That I can't feel it back? That my wolf can't respond?" "It frustrates me sometimes," he admitted honestly. "Not because of you, but because I want you to experience what I feel. I want you to feel that certainty, that belonging. But I can wait. Your healing is more important than completing a bond. What if my wolf never emerges? What if the block is permanent? Then we'll figure it out together." Kieran leaned forward, his gold eyes intense. "Mate bonds are meant to enhance a relationship, not define it. I could fall in love with you, without the bond. I think I already am falling in love with you. Your strength, your resilience, your determination to protect others even after what you suffered. Those qualities have nothing to do with wolves or bonds. They're just you." Something warm unfurled in Vera's chest. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "How to trust someone, how to be vulnerable, how to believe someone could actually want me for more than—" "We'll go slow as you need." Kieran's voice was gentle. "Tell me what you need. What would make you feel safe?" Vera thought about it. Time, space, no expectations. And she hesitated, then pushed forward. "Maybe help with my wolf? If there's a way to work through the block, to access her again, I want to try. I'll arrange for specialists. Healers who work with trauma-blocked wolves, meditation instructors, anyone who might help." Kieran's expression turned thoughtful. "There's also something called mate pull therapy. When one mate's wolf calls to the others, it can sometimes help draw out a blocked beast. But it requires physical proximity touch, scent sharing, sometimes even—" He stopped, color rising in his cheeks. "Even what? Physical intimacy. Not necessarily sexual," he added quickly. "But contact. Holding, cuddling, that sort of thing. The more connected we are physically, the stronger the pull my wolf can exert on yours." Vera's heart raced at the thought. The idea of being touched had always meant pain before. But Kieran's touch had been gentle, careful, respectful. Maybe relearning touch through safety was part of healing. "Could we try the proximity thing?" Her voice was barely a whisper. Not everything, but maybe small things, to see if it helps. Kieran's eyes widened. "Are you sure, Vera? I don't want you to feel pressured." "I'm not. I'm scared," she admitted. "But I want to try. I want my wolf back. And the words caught in her throat. "I want to feel what you feel. I want to know if the bond is real for me too." Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, Kieran moved to sit beside her on the couch. "Tell me if anything is too much. Promise? Promise." He held out his hand, palm up. An invitation, not a demand. Vera stared at it for a long moment, then carefully placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm and gentle. And for the first time in 5 years, touch didn't mean pain. They sat like that for nearly an hour, just holding hands, while Vera's racing heart gradually slowed. This was safe. He was safe. Maybe healing was possible after all. The following weeks brought more progress. Kieran arranged for a healer specialized in trauma-blocked wolves, a kind elderly she-wolf named Isa who'd helped dozens of victims recover their beasts. She worked with Vera daily, using meditation and guided visualization to help her connect with her trapped wolf. "She's strong," Isa said after their first session. "Your wolf, she's been protecting you all these years, holding the trauma so you could survive. But she's ready to emerge now. She just needs to know it's safe." Vera also began spending more time with Kieran. Small touches became normal, a hand on her shoulder, his arm around her during movie nights, sitting close enough for their thighs to touch. Each contact built trust, taught her body that touch could be comfort instead of pain. One evening, 6 weeks after the trial, they were sitting together watching the sunset from his balcony. Kieran's arm was around her shoulders, and Vera was curled against his side, finally relaxed enough to enjoy the warmth of another body. "I felt her today," Vera said quietly. "During meditation with Isa, my wolf. She was right there, just beneath the surface. I almost shifted." Kieran's arm tightened around her. "That's incredible. What stopped you?" "Fear, I think. Fear that the transformation would hurt again, like it did when I was 14. Fear that I'd fail." Vera turned to look at him. "Isa says that completing the mate bond might give me the final push I need. That feeling your wolf's presence might help mine fully emerge. And how do we complete the bond?" Vera took a shaky breath. "We'd need to go through a claiming ceremony, and then..." Heat flooded her cheeks. "Then we'd need to consummate it. The mate bond requires that level of connection to fully form." Kieran was very still. "Vera, I need you to be absolutely certain about what you're saying. Because I want that goddess. I want that more than anything. But not if you're doing it just to access your wolf. Not if you're forcing yourself because you think you owe me. I need you to want me. Not just what I can give you. I do want you." The admission felt huge, terrifying. "I've been falling for you for weeks now. The way you're patient with me. The way you've never pushed. The way you look at me like I'm precious instead of broken. I want the bond. I want you. I'm scared of the physical part. We can take it slow. We can stop at any point. We can..." Kieran cupped her face gently. "We can do whatever you need to feel safe. There's no rush, no pressure. Even if it takes years to get to that point, I'll wait." "I don't want to wait years." Vera leaned into his touch. "I want to heal now. I want my wolf back now. And I want to try building something real with you. So let's do the claiming ceremony. Let's take the next step. And we'll figure out the rest together." Kieran's smile was radiant. "Are you asking me to marry you?" "I think I am," Vera laughed, surprised by her own boldness. "Unless you need more time to consider." He kissed her. Gentle, careful, giving her every chance to pull away. But she didn't. Instead, she kissed him back, tentative but willing, learning that intimacy could be sweet instead of painful. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Kieran rested his forehead against hers. "Yes, absolutely yes. We'll do the claiming ceremony, and then we'll take things at your pace. Whatever you need, however long it takes. We're in this together." Together. Such a simple word. Such a revolutionary concept. For the first time in 10 years, Vera felt something like hope blooming in her chest. Not the desperate, fragile hope of survival, but real hope. Hope for a future. Hope for healing. Hope for happiness. She'd survived 5 years of torture. She'd found her voice. She'd gotten justice. And now, maybe, she could finally learn to live again. Hit that subscribe button if you think Vera deserves happiness after everything she survived. Because victims don't just need justice, they need people who'll celebrate their healing too. Comment below if you're rooting for her transformation, because wolves like Vera need to know their comeback stories matter. Chapter 6. The Public Downfall. The claiming ceremony was scheduled for the full moon, 3 weeks away. It gave Vera time to prepare, both mentally and emotionally, for the commitment she was making. But it also gave Vivienne time to plot, The first sign of trouble came from Beta Thorn. "We've intercepted messages," he said grimly, standing in Kieran's study with documents spread across the desk. "Vivienne is coordinating with her father. They're planning something, we just don't know what yet." Vera felt ice settle in her stomach. She'd been foolish to think Vivienne would simply accept defeat. "What kind of messages?" "Coded, mostly. References to, we're claiming honor and correcting mistakes. Our contact in Nightshade territory reports that Ravik has been hiring mercenaries, a lot of them. 20, maybe 30 wolves." Thorn's expression was dark. "That's not just revenge. That's an invasion force. He's going to attack during the claiming ceremony," Kieran said flatly. "When we're vulnerable, when the pack is celebrating. Maximum chaos, maximum casualties, and maximum chance to kill Vera before the bond completes," Thorn added. "If she dies before you claim her, the mate bond never forms. You'd be free to make another political marriage, and Ravik could negotiate for Vivienne's return." Vera's hands clenched into fists. "So, what do we do? Cancel the ceremony? Run?" "We set a trap." Kieran's smile was cold and predatory. "If they're planning to attack during the ceremony, let's give them exactly what they expect. A public celebration, seemingly undefended, too tempting to resist. But we'll have our own forces hidden and ready. When they make their move, we'll be waiting." "You want to use the ceremony as bait?" Vera's voice rose. "Use me as bait? I want to end this threat permanently," Kieran corrected. "Ravik won't stop. Vivienne won't stop. They'll keep coming, keep plotting, keep trying to kill you until either they succeed or we eliminate them as threats. Better to face them on our terms, in our territory, where we control the battlefield." It made tactical sense. But the thought of her claiming ceremony, what should be a sacred, joyful moment, turning into a battlefield, made Vera sick. "What if innocents get hurt?" she asked quietly. "Pack members who are just there to celebrate? We'll evacuate non-combatants before the attack begins. Thorn's intelligence network will give us warning." Kieran moved to her side, his presence warm and reassuring. "I know this isn't the ceremony you dreamed of, but it's the only way to ensure we actually get a future together." Vera closed her eyes, thinking, then nodded. "Okay. We do this. But I want to help plan the defense. I'm not just going to stand there looking pretty while everyone else fights for me." Thorn raised an eyebrow. "You're not a trained warrior." "No. But I have other skills." Vera met his gaze steadily. "I'm invisible, remember? I can move through a crowd without being noticed. And my blocked wolf Isa thinks the reason I can sense hostile intent before it manifests is because my beast is compensating for being unable to surface. She's feeding me information through other channels. If assassins infiltrate the ceremony, I'll know. I can warn you before they strike." The two men exchanged glances. Finally, Kieran nodded. "All right. You'll be part of the security team, but you stay close to me at all times. And at the first sign of serious danger, you run." "Understood?" "Understood." The next 3 weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. Publicly, the pack prepared for a celebration, decorations, feast preparations, invitations sent to neighboring allied territories. But privately, Kieran's warriors trained for battle. Defensive positions were established, escape routes planned, weapons hidden throughout the ceremonial grounds. Sophie returned to help, bringing several wolves from the Northlands pack as reinforcements. "Alpha Rowan sends his regards," she said, grinning. "Also 20 of his best fighters. He's very invested in making sure Vivienne doesn't get a second chance to hurt anyone." Vera also continued her work with healer Isa, desperately trying to access her blocked wolf before the ceremony. Every session brought her closer. She could feel her beast now, could sense her presence like a second heartbeat. But the final breakthrough remained elusive. "Don't force it," Isa advised. "Your wolf will emerge when you feel truly safe, when your mind and body believe you're no longer in danger. Pushing too hard will just reinforce the block." But time was running out. The full moon approached, bringing with it the claiming ceremony and the inevitable attack. 2 nights before the ceremony, Kieran found Vera standing on the balcony of her chambers, staring at the moon. "Can't sleep?" he asked, moving to stand beside her. "Too much to think about." Vera leaned against the railing. In 2 days, either we complete our bond and I finally get my wolf back, or Vivienne succeeds in killing me, and this whole nightmare starts over for someone else. She won't succeed. Kieran's voice was absolute certainty. I won't let her. You can't promise that. In battle, anything can happen. Then let me promise this instead. Kieran turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Whatever happens, you won't face it alone. My wolf and I will fight for you with everything we have. And if the worst happens, if they somehow get past our defenses, you run. You survive. You live the life you deserve, even if I'm not there to share it. Tears burned Vera's eyes. That's not comforting. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be true. He pulled her into his arms, and she went willingly, burying her face in his chest. But I don't plan on dying. I plan on claiming you properly, completing our bond, and spending the next 50 years making up for the 5 years you suffered. 50 years? Vera's voice was muffled against his shirt. At minimum. I'm a possessive wolf, and now that I've found my mate, I'm not letting go easily. His voice softened. I love you, Vera. I know we've only had weeks together, but I love you. Your strength, your courage, your determination to protect others even after everything you've been through. You're extraordinary. Vera pulled back to look at him, her vision blurred with tears. I love you too. I didn't think I'd ever feel this way about anyone. I thought Vivienne broke that part of me. But you, she touched his face wonderingly. You make me believe in good things again. They kissed then, deeper than before, with growing heat and need. Kieran's hands stayed respectful, never wandering, always giving her control. But the passion was there, building between them like a living thing. 2 more days, he murmured against her lips. Then you're mine. Officially, legally, in every way that matters. 2 more days, she agreed. We just have to survive 2 more days. The day of the ceremony arrived bright and clear. The full moon would rise at sunset, and the claiming would take place under its light tradition for mate bonds, meant to bring the goddess's blessing. Vera spent the morning in preparation rituals. Female pack members she'd never spoken to before came to help her bathe, dress, and style her hair. It should have been overwhelming, but their genuine kindness and excitement made it bearable. You're going to be a wonderful Luna, one young she-wolf said shyly as she wove flowers into Vera's hair. What you did, speaking up about the abuse, it was so brave. You've already made this pack better. The dress they'd prepared for her was beautiful, simple, but elegant. White silk that flowed like water and left her scarred shoulders bare. For the first time in her life, Vera didn't try to hide the lightning bolt marks. They were part of her story, part of her strength. Sophie helped her with the final touches, her expression bittersweet. You look beautiful. Kieran's going to lose his mind when he sees you. Thank you. Vera squeezed her friend's hand. For everything. For coming back, for testifying, for being here today. I couldn't have survived this without you. Yes, you could have. You're stronger than you know. Sophie's smile turned mischievous. But I'm glad I could help, and I'm glad I'll be here to watch that bitch get what's coming to her when she makes her move. Because they all knew she would. The question wasn't if Vivienne would attack, but when. As sunset approached, pack members began gathering in the ceremonial clearing, a beautiful space in the forest, ringed by ancient trees and overlooked by the mountains. Torches lined the perimeter, casting dancing shadows. A raised platform in the center would serve as the claiming stage. Vera's enhanced senses picked up the hidden warriors positioned throughout the trees. Archers on elevated platforms. Fighters concealed behind false brush. Even the elderly and young had been armed with basic weapons, just in case. Everyone was ready. She stood at the edge of the clearing with Thorn, waiting for her cue to enter. Her heart pounded against her ribs, but not from fear, from anticipation. In minutes, she would walk to that platform. Kieran would claim her before the goddess and the pack, and their bond would finally begin to form. If we survive that long, they're here, Thorn murmured, his hand going to his weapon. I can smell them. Upwind, trying to hide their scent, but there's too many. At least 30 hostiles surrounding the clearing. When will they attack? During the ceremony, They'll wait until you and Kieran are vulnerable, probably during the actual claiming, when your attention is on each other. Thorn's expression was grim. Be ready to move fast. When the fighting starts, it's going to get bloody. Vera nodded, touching the small knife concealed in her dress. She wasn't a warrior, but she wouldn't be helpless either. Music began, traditional pack songs performed by drummers and flutes. Vera's cue. She stepped into the clearing, and gasps rippled through the crowd. She'd expected judgment, whispers about her scars, shock at her scarred shoulders being displayed so openly. Instead, she got respect, admiration, pack members bowing their heads in acknowledgement as she passed. They see me, Vera realized. Really see me. Not as a broken servant, but as their future Luna, as someone worthy. The thought made her eyes sting with tears. Kieran waited on the platform, and the sight of him stole her breath. He wore traditional claiming robes, deep blue embroidered with silver wolves, open at the chest to show the alpha mark on his skin. His gold eyes tracked her every movement, blazing with love and possessive hunger. She climbed the platform steps and took his outstretched hand. The contact sent warmth rushing through her, and deep inside, her blocked wolf stirred. Soon, Vera thought at her beast. Soon you'll be free. Elder Aldrich began the ceremony, reciting ancient words about mate bonds and the goddess's blessings. Vera barely heard them. All her attention was on Kieran, on the way he looked at her like she was his entire world. Do you, Kieran Blackwood, Alpha of Silverpine, accept this woman as your true mate, chosen by the goddess and bound to your soul? I do. Kieran's voice rang out clearly. I claim her before the pack and the goddess. She is mine, and I am hers, for all time. And do you, Vera Thorn, accept this man as your true mate, chosen by the goddess and bound to your soul? This was it. The moment everything changed. Vera met Kieran's eyes and let herself fall into the certainty she saw there. I do. I claim him before the pack and the goddess. He is mine, and I am his, for all time. Then by the power vested in me by pack law and ancient tradition, I declare you mates. Alpha, you may. The arrow came from nowhere. 1 second, Vera was smiling up at Kieran. The next, pain exploded through her shoulder as a black-fletched arrow buried itself in her flesh. She stumbled, and Kieran caught her, his roar of rage shaking the trees. Attack! Thorn's voice boomed through the clearing. Protect the Luna. Chaos erupted. Mercenaries poured from the tree line, 30, 40, maybe more. They wore no pack markings, just dark leather armor and weapons designed to kill. The hidden warriors of Silverpine emerged from their positions, meeting the invaders with brutal efficiency. Kieran laid Vera down behind the platform, his eyes wild with fury and fear. Stay down. Don't move. I'm okay, she gasped, though the arrow in her shoulder burned like fire. It missed anything vital. Go protect the pack. He kissed her fiercely, then shifted. His wolf was massive, pure black with those same golden eyes, easily twice the size of a normal shifter, an alpha wolf in all his terrifying glory. He launched himself into the fray with a savage snarl, and mercenaries fell before him like wheat before a scythe. Vera pressed against the platform's base, trying to make herself small. Her shoulder throbbed, blood seeping through her white dress. She needed to remove the arrow, but pulling it out without proper care could make the bleeding worse. A shadow fell over her. She looked up into Vivienne's cold green eyes. Hello, pet. The former Luna held a blade, her perfect face twisted with hatred. Did you really think you'd won? Did you think I'd just let you take my place? You lost your place when you tortured innocent wolves, Vera said, forcing strength into her voice despite the pain. The council stripped your title. You have no claim here. Nah. I have every claim, Vivienne shrieked. I was Luna. I was perfect. And you broken, pathetic thing, you stole everything from me. She lunged. Vera rolled sideways, crying out as the arrow in her shoulder caught on the platform. Vivienne's blade missed by inches. Guards! Vera screamed. Thorn! But the fighting was too loud, too chaotic. No one heard her. Vivienne advanced, her smile vicious. No one's coming to save you this time. It's just you and me, like old times. Except now I don't have to be careful about marks. Now I can finally finish what I should have done years ago. Vera's hand closed around the knife at her belt. You won't win. Even if you kill me, Kieran will hunt you to the ends of the earth. Then I'll kill him too. Kill you both. Escape in the chaos. And start over somewhere else. Vivienne raised her blade. Goodbye, Vera. Give my regards to your pathetic dead parents. The mention of her parents, the casual cruelty of it, snapped something inside Vera. Rage, pure and incandescent, flooded through her. And in response, her blocked wolf roared. Pain exploded through every nerve as her body began to shift. Not the agonizing, incomplete transformation of her childhood, but something wild and powerful. Bones cracked and reformed. Muscles tore and rebuilt. Fur erupted across her skin. And for the first time in 10 years, Vera's wolf emerged. She was smaller than Kieran's massive alpha wolf, but beautiful silver gray with lightning white markings across her shoulders and back, mirroring the scars on her human form. Her eyes blazed with accumulated fury and pain from years of being trapped. Vivienne's blade clattered from her hand. No. No, that's not possible. You're blocked. You're broken. You can't. Vera's wolf snarled, and Vivienne ran. The chase was brief. Vivienne was fast in her wolf form, but Vera was faster, lean, and desperate and free after 10 years of imprisonment. She brought Vivienne down at the clearing's edge, teeth sinking into the former Luna's shoulder with savage satisfaction. Vivienne shifted back to human, screaming. Please, please. I'm sorry. I'll leave. I'll never come back. Just let me go. Too late. Kieran's massive wolf appeared beside Vera's, his presence a wall of alpha dominance. Around them, the battle was ending, mercenaries dead or fleeing, pack warriors securing the clearing, and every surviving wolf was watching this moment, watching as the broken servant girl, now transformed, held her torturer at her mercy. Vera shifted back to human, naked and bloody but triumphant. Her shoulder still bled from the arrow wound, but she barely felt it. All she felt was power, freedom, her wolf's presence, singing through her veins after a decade of silence. You wanted to break me, she said quietly, looking down at Vivienne's terrified face. You spent 5 years trying, but you failed, and now everyone sees the truth. You're not a Luna. You're not powerful. You're just a cruel, petty woman who hurt those weaker than her because it made you feel strong. Please, Vivienne sobbed. Please, I'm begging you. I'm not going to kill you. Vera stepped back. That would be mercy. Instead, you're going to live. Live with the knowledge that you lost, that the broken servant you tortured became Luna while you became nothing. That's a far worse punishment than death. Kieran shifted back, immediately pulling Vera into his arms. Your wolf. She finally emerged. She did. Vera laughed, the sound edged with tears. She really did. I'm whole, Kieran. For the first time since I was 14, I'm whole. And mine. His voice was rough with emotion. The bond, I can feel it forming. Can you? She could. A golden thread connecting her heart to his, strengthening with every breath. The mate bond. Beta Thorn approached, bloodied but victorious. The mercenaries are routed. We captured Lord Ravik, he was commanding from the rear. Coward that he is. What do you want done with him? Lock him up. He'll stand trial for conspiracy, attempted murder, and invasion. Kieran's eyes never left Vera's face. This ends now. The council will judge him, and every territory will know what happens when you threaten our pack. Guards dragged Vivienne away, her sobs echoing through the clearing. Ravik was brought forward in chains, his face purple with impotent rage. But Vera barely noticed. All her attention was on Kieran, on the bond humming between them, on the future that suddenly seemed possible. Should we finish the ceremony? She asked, gesturing to her bloodied state. I'm not exactly dressed for it anymore. Kieran laughed, the sound full of relief and joy. You're perfect exactly as you are. But yes, let's finish this properly. Elder Aldrich? The old wolf stepped forward, shaking but smiling. The claiming has been witnessed. The bond has begun to form. All that remains is the sealing. He produced a ceremonial blade and made a small cut on Kieran's palm, then did the same to Vera's. They pressed their bleeding hands together, and power surged between them, the mate bond locking into place with an almost audible click. Vera gasped as emotions flooded through her. Love, fierce and possessive, pride in her strength, joy at her wolf's emergence, and beneath it all, absolute certainty that they belonged together. "I can feel you," she whispered. "Your wolf, your emotions, everything. It's overwhelming. You'll adjust." "And Vera?" Kieran pulled her closer, his smile radiant. "Welcome home." The pack erupted in cheers. Warriors raised weapons in salute, and under the light of the full moon, the new Luna of Silverpine finally claimed her place. Chapter 7. Healing and Ascension, Part 1. The next morning, Vera woke wrapped in Kieran's arms, every muscle in her body screaming in protest. The transformation had been brutal after 10 years of blockage, and the arrow wound in her shoulder throbbed with each heartbeat. But beneath the pain was something extraordinary, the constant thrumming presence of her wolf, awake and alert after a decade of silence. "We're free," her beast whispered in her mind, the first clear words she'd heard from her wolf since she was 14. "We survived. We're whole." "Good morning, Luna." Kieran's voice was rough with sleep, his arms tightening around her. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got trampled by a herd of elk and then put back together wrong." Vera shifted carefully, testing her shoulder's range of motion. Healer Margot had treated the arrow wound after the ceremony, but it would take days to fully heal. But also, incredible? "My wolf is talking to me, Kieran. Actually forming words, not just sending emotions. I'd forgotten what that felt like." "Your wolf is magnificent." Kieran pressed a kiss to her temple. "Silver gray with lightning markings. She's perfect, just like you." Vera turned in his arms to face him, studying the alpha who'd upended her entire world. The claiming ceremony had been completed despite the attack, but they'd postponed the final consummation partly because of her injuries, but mostly because Vera had been too exhausted to do anything but sleep. "We should talk about last night," she said quietly. "About what happens next." "What do you want to happen next?" Kieran traced idle patterns on her bare shoulder, careful to avoid the bandaged wound. "The bond is formed. You're officially Luna, and we have all the time in the world to figure out the rest. The pack expects us to consummate the bond, to complete it fully." Heat flooded Vera's cheeks. "And I want to. I'm nervous. My only experiences with physical intimacy have been violent or painful, and I know you'd never hurt me, but my body doesn't always understand that distinction." "Then we'll take it slow as you need." Kieran's gold eyes were warm with understanding. "The bond is already forming. I can feel your emotions, sense your wolf, know when you're in pain or afraid. Consummation will strengthen it, but the core connection is already there. There's no rush. What if there's always going to be fear? What if I can never fully trust touch, even yours? Then we'll work through it together. Healing isn't linear, Vera. You're going to have good days and bad days, moments of strength and moments of terror. That's normal after what you've survived." He cupped her face gently. "I'm not going anywhere. Whether consummation happens tonight, next month, or next year, I'm yours and you're mine. The timeline doesn't matter." Relief flooded through her, followed by overwhelming love for this patient, understanding alpha. "Tonight," she said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. "I want to try tonight. My shoulder will be healed enough by then, and I want to complete the bond. I want all of you." Kieran's eyes darkened with heat, but his touch remained gentle. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure I want to try. And I'm sure I trust you not to push if I need to stop." Vera leaned forward to kiss him, soft and sweet. "Besides, we have an entire day to work up to it. Maybe if we spend today practicing, it won't be so scary tonight." His laugh was low and delicious. "Practicing? I like the sound of that." They spent the morning exactly like that, learning each other's bodies through careful, gentle touches. Kieran showed Vera that intimacy could be pleasure instead of pain, that vulnerability didn't have to mean weakness, and slowly, carefully, she began to believe it. By afternoon, however, reality intruded. Beta Thorn requested an urgent meeting, and Vera reluctantly pulled herself from the cocoon of safety she'd built in Kieran's chambers. The study was crowded. Thorn, Elder Aldrich, several other council members, and representatives from neighboring packs who'd come to witness the claiming ceremony and stayed for the aftermath. "We have a problem," Thorn said without preamble. "Lord Ravik is demanding a formal hearing. He claims the attack was a rescue attempt to save his daughter from false imprisonment. He's positioning himself as the victim, saying we entrapped him." "That's absurd," Vera said, her voice sharp with anger. "He hired assassins to kill me weeks before the ceremony. We have the mercenaries' testimony, which Ravik claims was coerced." Elder Aldrich's expression was troubled. He's technically within his rights to demand a hearing, and several neutral territories are calling for one as well. They want to ensure we didn't fabricate charges against Vivienne to dissolve a political marriage. So we give them a hearing. Kieran's voice was cold. "We present every piece of evidence, call every witness, and let the truth speak for itself." Again, there's another complication. Thorn produced a letter sealed with an unfamiliar crest. This arrived this morning by urgent courier. It's from the High Council, the governing body that oversees all packs in the region. They're sending arbitrators to investigate the situation. If they rule in Ravik's favor, we could face sanctions, trade embargoes, territorial restrictions, even demands that you reinstate Vivienne as Luna. The room fell silent. "They can't do that," Vera whispered. "She tortured me. She tortured others." "There's proof." The High Council doesn't always care about proof as much as they care about political stability. Aldrich's voice was heavy. "Ravik's territory is powerful, with alliances throughout the region. If they side with him, other packs might follow. We could be looking at isolation or worse. Then we make sure they don't side with him." Kieran's jaw set with determination. "We prepare the most comprehensive case possible. Every piece of evidence, every witness, every document. We show them that this wasn't political maneuvering, it was justice for systematic abuse. And we show them Vera's transformation," Thorn added. "A blocked wolf emerging after 10 years of trauma is proof of legitimate suffering. The High Council includes healers and scholars. They'll understand the significance." Vera's stomach churned. Another trial, more testimony, more reliving her worst memories in front of strangers who might not believe her. But she'd survived the first trial. She'd survived the attack. She could survive this too. "When do the arbitrators arrive?" she asked. 3 days, Thorn said. "They're already en route. Then we have 3 days to prepare." Vera straightened her shoulders, ignoring the pull of her wound. "Let's get to work." The next 3 days were a blur of preparation. Sophie returned with additional witnesses, wolves from sanctuary territories who'd been abused by nobles and were willing to testify about systematic mistreatment of servants throughout the region. Their stories weren't about Vivienne specifically, but they established a pattern of abuse that higher-ranking wolves inflicted on those beneath them. "The High Council needs to see that this isn't an isolated incident," Sophie explained. "Vivienne wasn't an anomaly, she was part of a larger problem. Nobles who believe their rank puts them above accountability, who treat servants as property instead of pack members." Healer Margot compiled extensive medical documentation, not just of Vera's injuries, but of every abuse case she'd treated over her 40-year career. The numbers were staggering: dozens of servants with suspicious injuries, patterns of harm that couldn't possibly be accidental. "I should have spoken up years ago," Margot said, her voice thick with regret. "Should have forced the council to see what was happening. But I was afraid. Afraid of losing my position, of being dismissed as a troublemaker. So I stayed silent. And wolves suffered." "You're speaking now," Vera told her gently. "That's what matters. We can't change the past, but we can shape the future." Kieran, meanwhile, worked on building political support. He contacted every allied alpha, every neutral territory, every wolf who might speak in their favor. By the time the arbitrators arrived, he had a coalition of supporters, smaller packs, and progressive leaders who believed in protecting the vulnerable rather than maintaining the status quo. And through it all, Vera continued her own healing. She spent hours in wolf form, running through the mountains and relearning the joy of transformation. Her beast was still adjusting after 10 years of imprisonment, but the freedom was intoxicating. "We're strong," her wolf insisted during one of their runs. "We survived what should have broken us. We can face anything now." On the third night, the night before the arbitrators were due to arrive, Kieran found Vera in their chambers, staring at herself in the mirror. She wore a simple nightgown, and her hair was loose around her shoulders. The bandage on her shoulder had been removed, revealing pink scar tissue that would fade with time. "Having second thoughts?" he asked softly. "About the hearing? About us? About everything?" Vera laughed without humor. "Constantly. But I'm not running. I'm done running." "Good, because I have something for you." Kieran produced a small wooden box, carved with intricate wolf designs. "This belonged to my mother. She was Luna before Vivienne, and she believed that a Luna's strength came from protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. When she died, she left this to pass on to whoever claimed the position next." Inside the box was a silver pendant, a wolf's head wrought in exquisite detail, with amber stones for eyes. It was beautiful and clearly ancient, radiating significance. "It's the Luna's mark," Kieran explained. "Every Luna of Silverpine has worn it since the pack's founding. Vivienne refused to wear it, said it was old-fashioned and didn't match her jewelry. But you," he lifted the pendant carefully, "you embody everything this represents. Strength, protection, justice. I'd be honored if you'd wear it." Tears pricked Vera's eyes as Kieran fastened the chain around her neck. The pendant settled against her chest, warm and right, as if it had been waiting for her. "I don't know how to be a Luna," she whispered. "I was a servant 3 months ago. I don't know protocol, politics, any of it. You know the most important thing, you know what it's like to be powerless. You know what it feels like when those in authority fail to protect you." Kieran turned her to face him. "That empathy, that understanding, that's what will make you an extraordinary Luna. You'll see the wolves others overlook. You'll hear the voices others ignore. And you'll fight for them the way I should have fought for you." "We'll fight for them," Vera corrected. "Together." They made love that night for the first time, slow and careful and healing. Kieran was endlessly patient, stopping whenever Vera needed to pause, praising her courage when old fears surfaced. And when they finally came together fully, when the bond completed with a surge of golden light, Vera felt something inside her click into place. "Whole," her wolf whispered. "We're finally whole." Afterward, they lay tangled together, the mate bond singing between them with perfect clarity. Vera could feel Kieran's contentment, his fierce love, his pride in her strength, and he could feel her gradual healing, the way terror was slowly being replaced by trust. "Tomorrow's going to be difficult," he said quietly. "The arbitrators won't be easy to convince. They'll question everything, challenge every piece of evidence, try to find reasons to rule in Ravek's favor. Let them try." Vera's voice was steady. "I've survived worse than difficult questions. And I have something Vivienne never did, the truth. That has to count for something." "It counts for everything." Kieran pulled her closer. "No matter what happens tomorrow, remember you're not alone anymore. You have me, the pack, allies throughout the region. You're not that frightened servant hiding in the kitchen. You're Luna of Silverpine, and you're magnificent." Vera closed her eyes, letting his words settle into her bones. Luna of Silverpine. It still felt surreal, impossible. But the pendant around her neck was real. The wolf in her soul was real. The love binding her to this alpha was real. Tomorrow she'd face the arbitrators. Tomorrow she'd fight for justice again. Tomorrow the world would try to test her strength. But tonight, she was safe, whole, loved, and that was enough. The arbitrators arrived at dawn, 3 ancient wolves, whose authority superseded even alpha commands. They were led by High Arbiter Celeste, a steel-gray she-wolf whose sharp eyes missed nothing. "We are here to investigate allegations of misconduct and determine whether justice was properly served," she announced to the assembled pack. "We will interview witnesses, examine evidence, and render judgment within 3 days. Our decision is final and binding on all parties." The hearing began immediately in the council chamber, with even more wolves in attendance than the original trial. Representatives from a dozen territories crowded the seats, all eager to witness this historic judgment. Lord Ravek presented his case first, painting himself as a concerned father whose daughter had been railroaded by a servant with delusions of grandeur. He claimed the abuse allegations were fabricated, the diary evidence forged, the testimony coerced. "My daughter is not perfect," he said smoothly. "She may have been strict with servants, as is her right as Luna. But torture? Systematic abuse? These are the fantasies of a disturbed girl who saw an opportunity to elevate her position by destroying my daughter's reputation." "And the assassination attempt?" Arbiter Celeste asked. "The mercenary who confessed to being hired by you?" "A lie told for clemency. I never hired anyone. The servant girl likely hired him herself and paid him to implicate me, a false flag to make her story more believable." Ravek's expression was earnest, convincing. "Think about it logically. Why would I risk war, risk everything, over a servant? It makes no sense unless the entire situation is fabricated." Several pack members murmured agreement. Vera's stomach twisted with fear. He was good, persuasive, making her sound like a manipulative liar rather than a victim. Then it was their turn to present evidence. Thorn methodically destroyed Ravek's arguments. He presented the gold marks traced to Ravek's treasury. He called forward witnesses from the inn where Ravek had met the assassin. He showed how Vivian's diary handwriting matched samples from official documents she'd signed as Luna. Margot testified about the medical impossibility of Vera's injuries being self-inflicted or accidental. Sophie and the other former servants testified about their own abuse, creating an undeniable pattern, and then Vera herself took the stand. "Tell us your story," Arbiter Celeste said. "From the beginning. Leave nothing out." So Vera told it again. Every detail, every moment of horror, every scar earned through 5 years of torture. But this time, she had something new to add: the story of her blocked wolf's emergence. "For 10 years my beast was trapped inside me. Healers said the trauma block would only break if I felt truly safe, truly protected. But how could I feel safe when the person who should have protected me, the Luna, was my abuser?" Vera's voice rang through the chamber. "It wasn't until Alpha Kieran intervened, until I finally had someone fighting for me instead of against me, that my wolf could emerge. That transformation is proof that my suffering was real. You can't fake a trauma block breaking. You can't manufacture the kind of psychological healing required for a blocked wolf to surface." She shifted then, right there in the chamber, letting the arbitrators see her silver-gray wolf with its lightning markings. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Transforming during formal proceedings was technically forbidden, but no one moved to stop her. "Show them," her wolf urged. "Show them what we survived." Vera shifted back, standing naked and unashamed before hundreds of witnesses. Let them see her scars. Let them see the evidence written on her skin. "This is what 5 years of torture looks like," she said quietly. "These marks are my truth, and no amount of political maneuvering can erase them." Arbiter Celeste was silent for a long moment. Then she gestured for Vera to sit. "We will deliberate and render judgment tomorrow." The chamber cleared slowly, wolves whispering amongst themselves. Kieran pulled Vera into his arms the moment they were back in their chambers, his whole body shaking. "That was incredible," he breathed. "Shifting in the chamber, showing your scars, you were fearless." "I was terrified," Vera admitted. "But I'm done hiding. Done being ashamed. If the arbitrators rule against us anyway, at least everyone will know the truth. They won't rule against us. They can't. The evidence is too strong." But Vera wasn't so sure. She'd learned long ago that truth and justice didn't always align. All they could do now was wait. The next day passed in agonizing slowness. The arbitrators deliberated behind closed doors, calling forward occasional witnesses for clarification but revealing nothing of their thoughts. Vera spent the time with Sophie and the other abuse survivors, finding comfort in their shared strength. They'd all suffered at the hands of those more powerful. They'd all found ways to survive. And now, together, they were demanding change. "Regardless of what the arbitrators decide," Sophie said firmly. "This conversation is happening now. Other territories are watching. Other servants are seeing that they can speak up. Even if justice fails this time, we've planted seeds that will grow." "Justice won't fail," Vera said, trying to convince herself as much as Sophie. "It can't." But as the sun set on the second day, doubt crept in. What if the arbitrators valued political stability over truth? What if they decided one servant's suffering wasn't worth the chaos of holding a noble accountable? We survived 5 years of torture, her wolf reminded her. We'll survive this too. That night, wrapped in Kieran's arms, Vera finally allowed herself to cry. For the girl she'd been, for the years stolen from her, for the fear that even now, justice might slip through her fingers. Whatever happens tomorrow, Kieran murmured into her hair, you're still Luna. You're still my mate. And you're still the strongest wolf I've ever known. No arbiter can take that away. Vera held on to those words as sleep finally claimed her. Tomorrow would bring judgment. Tomorrow would determine whether her suffering meant anything. Tomorrow would show whether the world was ready to change. Chapter 8. Healing and Ascension. Part 2. The council chamber was packed to capacity when the arbitrators emerged to deliver their judgment. Vera stood beside Kieran on the platform, Sophie and the other survivors arrayed behind them in a show of solidarity. Across the chamber, Lord Ravek waited with his advisors, his expression confident. High Arbiter Celeste surveyed the crowd with her sharp gray eyes before speaking. We have reviewed all evidence, interviewed witnesses, and consulted with healers and legal scholars throughout the region. This case has been complex, touching on issues of rank, privilege, and the treatment of those society deems powerless. Our judgment will set precedent for generations to come. Vera's hand found Kieran's, their fingers intertwining. Through the mate bond, she felt his steady strength, his unwavering faith in her. In the matter of Luna Vivian Ravek, Celeste continued, her voice carrying through the silent chamber. We find the evidence of systematic abuse to be overwhelming and incontrovertible. Medical documentation, witness testimony from multiple sources, and the accused's own written confession in her diary paint a clear picture of calculated cruelty spanning nearly 5 years. Ravek's confident expression flickered. Furthermore, Celeste continued, the emergence of the plaintiff's blocked wolf, a phenomenon that requires genuine psychological healing to occur, provides irrefutable proof that her trauma was real and severe. Trauma blocks do not break from fabricated stories or political maneuvering. They break only when the victim achieves true safety and begins genuine healing. Relief flooded through Vera, so intense it made her dizzy. Kieran's arm wrapped around her waist, holding her steady. In the matter of Lord Ravek's involvement, Celeste's voice hardened. The evidence of conspiracy to commit murder is similarly damning. The gold marks traced to his treasury, witness testimony placing him at the meeting with the hired assassin, and the timing of the attack all support the conclusion that he attempted to silence his daughter's accuser through murder. This is outrageous, Ravek exploded. You're taking the word of servants over nobility. You're destroying centuries of pack hierarchy based on silence. Celeste's command cracked through the air like thunder. You will speak when spoken to, Lord Ravek, or you will be removed from these proceedings. Ravek's mouth snapped shut, but his eyes blazed with fury. This council finds that the original trial conducted by Silverpine Pack was just and proper, Celeste announced. Luna Vivienne's banishment stands. Her titles and privileges remain stripped. She is forbidden from holding any position of authority within any pack in this region. Cheers erupted from the Silverpine Pack members. Sophie grabbed Vera in a fierce hug, both of them crying with relief. But Celeste wasn't finished. Furthermore, we find Lord Ravek guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, attempted invasion, and obstruction of justice. His territory will be placed under council oversight for a period of 5 years. During that time, he will be forbidden from holding the position of Alpha. A council-appointed regent will govern Nightshade Pack to ensure no further abuses occur. Ravek's face turned purple with rage. You can't do this. My territory won't stand for. Your territory will comply with this judgment or face collective banishment, Celeste interrupted coldly. We have already contacted your Beta and Council of Elders. They have agreed to council oversight rather than face complete dissolution. You, Lord Ravek, are hereby stripped of your Alpha title and sentenced to house arrest within Nightshade territory for the remainder of your life. The pronouncement hit like a thunderclap. Ravek, one of the most powerful alphas in the region, reduced to nothing. His daughter banished, his pack taken from him, complete and total loss. It was more than Vera had dared hope for. Finally, Celeste turned her attention to the broader assembly. This case has revealed systemic issues that extend far beyond Silverpine territory. The abuse of servants, the dismissal of complaints from lower-ranked pack members, the failure of authority figures to investigate credible allegations. These problems exist throughout our region. She produced a scroll, unfurling it for all to see. By authority of the High Council, we are implementing new laws, effective immediately across all packs in this jurisdiction. First, all pack members, regardless of rank or wolf status, have the right to file formal complaints without fear of retaliation. Second, all allegations of abuse must be investigated by an impartial party within 7 days of filing. Third, healers are required to report suspicious patterns of injury to pack authorities. And fourth, blocked wolves, broken wolves, and all other shifters with transformation difficulties are granted full legal standing as pack members. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. These weren't just judgments, they were revolutionary changes to pack law itself. The treatment of Vera Blackwood, Luna of Silverpine, was unconscionable, Celeste stated, her voice ringing with authority. But her courage in speaking up, and her strength in surviving, will ensure that future victims have protections she did not. Let this case serve as a warning. Abuse will not be tolerated, regardless of the abuser's rank. Justice belongs to all wolves, not just the powerful. With that, she struck her staff against the stone floor 3 times, the sound echoing like a final verdict. This hearing is concluded. The council's judgment is rendered and binding. As the arbitrators filed out, the chamber exploded into chaos. Some wolves cheered, celebrating the victory and the new protections. Others argued, concerned about the changes to pack hierarchy and traditional power structures, but Vera heard none of it. She turned into Kieran's arms and finally let herself believe it was over. "We won," she whispered against his chest. "We actually won." "You won," he corrected, pulling back to cup her face. "Your courage, your testimony, your transformation, that's what changed everything. I'm so proud of you." Sophie pushed through the crowd with the other survivors, all of them crying and laughing at once. They'd come together as broken victims. They were leaving as validated survivors whose suffering had sparked real change. "Thank you," Sophie said to Vera, gripping her hands tightly. "Thank you for being brave enough to speak up, for fighting when it would have been easier to stay silent. You saved lives today, not just ours, but all the future wolves who'll be protected by these new laws. We did it together," Vera insisted. "All of us. This victory belongs to every survivor who found the strength to tell their story." 6 months later, the Luna's office was bright and welcoming, with large windows overlooking the mountains and comfortable furniture that invited conversation rather than intimidation. Vera sat behind her desk, reviewing the latest batch of complaints that had been filed under the new protection laws. Most were minor disputes between pack members, concerns about working conditions, requests for mediation, but a few were serious allegations of abuse that required immediate investigation. Those, Vera handled personally. A knock at the door interrupted her reading. "Come in," she called. A young she-wolf entered, perhaps 16, with downcast eyes and nervous hands. "Luna? I was told that you help wolves who are being hurt." Vera's heart clenched. She recognized that posture, that fear, that desperate hope mixed with terror. She'd stood exactly like that once. "I do help," Vera said gently, coming around the desk to guide the girl to a comfortable chair. "What's your name?" "Lily. I'm from the Riverside Pack, but I ran away. My alpha's son, her voice broke. He hurts me, has been hurting me for months. I tried to report it, but the beta is the alpha's brother, and he said I was lying, that I was trying to trap the son into marriage, and—" "You did the right thing coming here," Vera interrupted firmly. "Silverpine is a sanctuary territory now. Any wolf suffering abuse can seek protection here, and we'll investigate their claims properly. You're safe now, Lily. I promise you're safe." Tears streamed down the girl's face. "They said you'd understand. That you were hurt too, before you became Luna. Is that true?" "It's true," Vera pulled up her sleeve, showing the scars that remained even after months of healing. I was tortured for 5 years by someone more powerful than me. I know what it's like to have no one believe you, to feel trapped and helpless. But I also know that survival is possible, that healing is possible, and that you deserve justice. By the time Lily left an hour later, she'd given a full statement, been examined by a healer, and been assigned quarters in the protected wing of the pack house. Beta Thorn was already contacting the Riverside Pack to inform them that one of their members had sought sanctuary and formal charges would be filed. It was the 4th case this month. Word was spreading throughout the region. Silverpine's Luna protected the vulnerable. Abuse survivors found sanctuary here. Justice was possible, and slowly, other territories were starting to follow their example. That evening, Vera found Kieran in their private chambers, reviewing reports from allied packs. He looked up when she entered, his expression softening immediately. "Rough day?" he asked, opening his arms. She went to him gratefully, curling up in his lap. Another survivor, 16 years old, being hurt by an alpha's son. "I've assigned Thorn to investigate. You're building something incredible, you know that?" Kieran pressed a kiss to her temple. 6 months ago, that girl would have had nowhere to go. Now she has sanctuary, protection, and a real chance at justice. You did that. We did that. The new laws, the sanctuary protocols, the investigations, none of it would work without your support. But it was your vision, your determination to ensure no one else suffered what you did. His hand moved to her stomach, where a barely there swell was just beginning to show. "And soon, our child will grow up in a pack where abuse isn't tolerated, where every wolf, regardless of rank, has value and protection." Vera placed her hand over his, marveling at the life growing inside her. After everything Vivienne had done, after all the ways she'd tried to break Vera, she'd never succeeded in destroying this, the ability to create new life, to hope for the future, to believe in good things. "I'm scared," she admitted quietly, "of being a mother, of somehow repeating the cycle of hurt, even though I'd never intentionally harm our child. What if my trauma affects them? What if I can't?" "You'll be an amazing mother," Kieran interrupted gently, "because you know what hurt feels like, and you'll do everything in your power to shield our child from experiencing it. You'll teach them kindness, compassion, strength. You'll show them that survival is possible, that healing is real, that justice is worth fighting for. And if they inherit my blocked wolf, if they struggle with transformation like I did, then we'll help them through it, together." Kieran tilted her face up to kiss her softly. "Our child will be loved unconditionally, protected fiercely, and raised to value all wolves regardless of rank or ability. They'll grow up in a better world because you had the courage to demand better." A knock at the door interrupted the moment. Sophie entered, grinning widely. "Sorry to interrupt the domestic bliss, but you need to see this." She held out a letter bearing the seal of the High Council. Kieran opened it, his eyebrows rising as he read. "They want you to testify before the full Continental Assembly," he said, looking at Vera with a mixture of pride and concern. "To share your story and advocate for expanding the protection laws to all territories on the continent, not just our region." Vera's breath caught. The Continental Assembly governed hundreds of packs across thousands of miles. If they adopted the protection laws, it would mean safety for countless wolves who currently had no recourse against abuse. "It's a huge opportunity," Sophie said. "But it would mean reliving everything again, in front of the most powerful alphas on the continent, some of whom will fight against the changes because it threatens their power." "When?" Vera asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. 3 months. After you've had time to adjust to pregnancy and prepare your testimony." Kieran studied her face carefully. "You don't have to do this. You've already done more than anyone could ask. You've changed our region, built a sanctuary, helped dozens of survivors. You don't owe the world more of your pain." But Vera thought about Lily, the terrified 16-year-old who'd found her way to Silverpine seeking safety. She thought about all the other wolves suffering in silence, believing no one would help them, that their pain didn't matter. She thought about who she'd been 6 months ago, a broken servant who'd survived through invisibility and endurance, who'd never dreamed justice was possible. and she thought about who she'd become. Luna of Silverpine, mate to an alpha, protector of the vulnerable, someone who could speak for those who had no voice. "I'll do it," she said firmly. "I'll testify. Not because I owe the world my pain, but because I owe it to every survivor who can't speak up themselves. My story has power. If sharing it can save even one wolf from suffering what I did, then it's worth telling again." Kieran pulled her close, his emotions flooding through the mate, bond, pride, love, and fierce protectiveness. "Then, we'll prepare the best testimony possible, and I'll be right there beside you, every step of the way." 3 years later, the Silverpine Packhouse courtyard was filled with laughter and music as the annual Survivors celebration reached its peak. What had started as a small gathering of abuse survivors had grown into a massive event, with wolves traveling from across the continent to attend. Vera moved through the crowd, her 2-year-old son Asher balanced on her hip. He had his father's dark hair and gold eyes, but his mother's gentle spirit, and unlike Vera, his wolf had emerged right on schedule at age 2, a healthy, happy transformation that had brought tears of joy to everyone who witnessed it. "Mama down," Asher demanded, squirming. "Play with Sophie." Vera set him down, watching as he toddled toward Sophie, who was surrounded by a group of young survivors. She'd taken on a formal role in Silverpine as coordinator of the Sanctuary program, helping newly arrived abuse victims adjust and heal. "He's getting so big," a familiar voice said. Lily, no longer the terrified 16-year-old who'd arrived seeking sanctuary, but a confident young woman who now worked as an advocate for survivor rights, smiled at Vera. "Hard to believe it's been 3 years since I showed up on your doorstep." "How are you doing?" Vera asked. "Really doing? Good, really good." Lily's smile was genuine. The alpha's son who hurt me was convicted and banished. His father was forced to step down for covering up the abuse, and the new alpha of Riverside Pack has implemented all the protection protocols. I actually went back last month to visit my family. It felt safe. For the first time in years, stories like Lily's were becoming more common. The Continental Assembly had adopted the protection laws 2 years ago, after Vera's testimony had moved even the most resistant alphas. Implementation was slow and uneven, but change was happening. Across the courtyard, Kieran was deep in conversation with several allied alphas, likely discussing the next phase of reform. He caught Vera's eye and smiled, the mate bond between them humming with contentment. They'd come so far, both of them, both scarred by their pasts but healing together. "Luna Vera?" A nervous voice interrupted her thoughts. A young male wolf stood before her, his posture screaming trauma. "I'm River, from the Northern Wastes Pack. I was told. They said you might be able to help me." Vera's heart clenched with familiar recognition. Another survivor. Another wolf seeking sanctuary and justice. "I can help," she said gently, guiding him toward the sanctuary office. "Tell me what happened." As River began his story, painful and achingly familiar, Vera found herself thinking about her journey, from broken servant to Luna, from victim to advocate, from voiceless to powerful. Her scars still ached sometimes, especially in cold weather. Her memories still brought nightmares occasionally, but she was healing. Every survivor she helped, every law that changed, every wolf who found safety in Silverpine, it all contributed to her own recovery. Vivienne had tried to break her, had spent 5 years systematically destroying her spirit, her hope, her sense of self-worth, but she'd failed. Vera had survived, had found her voice, had demanded justice and received it. And now she was using her pain to protect others, to ensure no one else suffered in silence the way she had. "This is my revenge," she thought, as she listened to River's story, as she offered him the sanctuary and protection she'd once desperately needed. Not violence or cruelty, but building something better. Creating a world where abuse is exposed instead of hidden, where victims are believed instead of silenced, where power means responsibility instead of immunity. After River left with a promise of protection and investigation, Vera stepped out into the courtyard again. The celebration continued, survivors laughing and healing together, building community from shared pain. Sophie was teaching Asher to dance, both of them giggling. Kieran was making his way toward her, love shining in his golden eyes. And all around them, wolves who'd been broken were learning to be whole again. "Mama," Asher called, breaking away from Sophie to run to her. "Dance with me." Vera scooped him up, spinning him around as he shrieked with delight. Her son would grow up knowing his mother's story, would understand that survival was possible, that healing was real, that justice was worth fighting for. He would grow up in a better world, a world Vera had helped create. Kieran joined them, pulling both his mate and his son into his arms. "What are you thinking about?" he murmured. "That I'm happy," Vera said simply. "After everything, after all of it, I'm genuinely happy, and that feels like the greatest victory of all." She looked down at her scarred arms, visible below her rolled sleeves. She'd stopped hiding them months ago. These scars told her story not just of suffering, but of survival, not just of victimhood, but of victory. "My scars tell stories," she thought, echoing the realization she'd had months ago during testimony preparation. "But they don't define me. I'm more than what was done to me. I'm what I became despite it. Luna of Silverpine, mate to an alpha, mother to a beautiful son, protector of the vulnerable, voice for the voiceless, survivor." As the sun set over the mountains and the celebration continued into the night, Vera finally understood what healing looked like. It wasn't forgetting the past or erasing the scars. It was integrating the pain into her story without letting it write her ending. Vivienne had taken 5 years of her life, but Vera had taken back her power, her voice, and her future, and she would spend the rest of her life ensuring that other survivors could do the same. That was her legacy. That was her triumph. That was justice. Epilogue. 10 years later, the Luna's memoir sat on bestseller lists across the continent. A raw and honest account of abuse, survival, and redemption. Invisible no more. One Luna's journey from victim to victor had sold millions of copies and sparked conversations in every pack territory. Vera stood before a crowd of young wolves at a sanctuary conference, her now 11-year-old son Asher sitting proudly in the front row beside his younger sister, Elena, who was 7, and already showing signs of being as fierce as her mother. "People often ask me how I survived," Vera said to the assembled crowd of survivors, advocates, and reformers. "They want to know the secret, the trick, the one thing that got me through 5 years of torture. And the truth is, there is no secret. I survived through stubbornness, through hope I didn't even know I still had, through the belief that somewhere, somehow, justice might exist." She paused, looking out at the faces watching her. Some scarred visibly, others carrying invisible wounds. All of them warriors in their own right. But surviving isn't enough. I don't want any of you to just survive. I want you to thrive. To heal. To reclaim the lives that were stolen from you and build something beautiful from the wreckage. Vera's voice strengthened. "You are not defined by what was done to you. You are defined by what you choose to become, despite it, and every single one of you has the power to create change, to protect others, to ensure that your suffering wasn't meaningless." The applause was thunderous. After the conference, as Vera walked with her family back to their quarters, Asher spoke up. "Mom, when I'm older, can I help survivors too? Like you and Aunt Sophie do?" Vera's heart swelled. "Of course, sweetheart. The world always needs more protectors. And me too," Elena piped up. "I want to be strong like Mama." Kieran laughed, swinging his daughter up onto his shoulders. "You're both already strong, just like your mother." That night, as Vera tucked her children into bed, Elena asked the question Vera had been dreading and preparing for simultaneously. "Mama, why do you have those marks on your arms? The ones that look like lightning?" "How?" Vera sat on the edge of her daughter's bed, choosing her words carefully. "These scars are from a long time ago, when Mama was hurt by someone who should have protected her instead. But these marks remind me that I survived. That I'm strong. And that I'll always fight to protect others the way I wish someone had protected me." "Were you scared?" Elena asked, her young face serious. "Terrified, every single day." Vera smoothed her daughter's hair back. "But being scared doesn't mean you can't be brave. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for help, tell your story, and refuse to stay silent." I'd never let anyone hurt you, Elena declared fiercely. If someone tried, I'd fight them with my wolf. I know you would, sweetheart. You have a warrior's heart. Vera kissed her forehead. But I hope you never have to fight like that. I hope you grow up in a world where survivors are believed, where abuse is stopped before it escalates, where justice is expected instead of exceptional. After her children were asleep, Vera stood on the balcony overlooking the packhouse grounds. Kieran's arms wrapped around her from behind. Do you ever regret it? He asked quietly. Being so public about what you went through? Sharing your story with the world? Vera considered the question. The memoir had brought attention, but also scrutiny. Some wolves still questioned her account, claiming she'd exaggerated for fame or profit. Others dismissed her story as exceptional, insisting abuse wasn't as common as she claimed. But far more had thanked her, had shared their own stories, had found courage in her example. No regrets, she said finally. My pain had a purpose. It sparked change. And every survivor who's found safety because of the laws we fought for. Every wolf who's been believed instead of dismissed, that makes everything worth it. You're extraordinary, you know that? Kieran's voice was thick with emotion. I look at you and I see the scared servant girl I found in the stairwell 10 years ago. And then I see who you've become, this powerful, compassionate leader who's changed the world. And I'm in awe every single day. I couldn't have done it without you. Without your support, your protection, your belief in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Vera turned in his arms to face him. We did this together. Together, he agreed, kissing her softly. Always together. As they stood wrapped in each other's arms under the stars, Vera thought about the journey that had brought her here. About the broken 14-year-old who'd lost her parents and her wolf. About the terrified servant who'd endured 5 years of torture. About the woman who'd finally found her voice and used it to demand justice. About the Luna. She'd become scarred but unbroken, wounded but healing, forever changed but ultimately triumphant. This is my story, she thought. Not just of suffering, but of survival. Not just of victimhood, but of victory. Not just of pain, but of purpose. And it's not over. It's just beginning. Because there would always be more survivors who needed help, more battles to fight for justice, more changes to implement to make the world safer for the vulnerable. And Vera would be there, leading the charge, using her voice for those who'd lost theirs. Invisibly no more. Never again. If Vera's story moved you, subscribe, because there are countless real survivors whose stories never get told. Leaving without subscribing means one less voice amplifying their truth. Drop a comment sharing what this story meant to you, because your words might be exactly what another survivor needs to hear to find their own courage.